Welcome back to the Legit Day Job podcast. I'm Cody.
I'm Nushan.
And I'm Kay.
And this is our Legit Day Job. What we do every day for a living. Yes, that's right. That's right. It's what we do every day for a living.
Oh.
We're just gonna jump right into it because we got quite an episode. I would not be surprised if this pushed 2 hours. Maybe. Who knows? Hopefully not. This is day 14 of Toho-thon. I think it's starting to set in for all of us.
Yes.
Slowly but surely. We have now finished the Showa era, thankfully though. And with the last two films, Godzilla vs. Mecahgodzilla and Terror of Mechagodzilla. What a way to go out with.
Go out with a bang.
Go out with a bang. Go out with a million bangs. Jesus Christ, Mecahgodzilla is loaded.
Yeah. He just unloaded his.
So let's start off with Godzilla vs. Mecahgodzilla. So this film, in a nutshell, oh god, there's like two different plot lines happening at the exact same time. You got archaeologists finding this like ancient dig site where they find a statue of a lion, and that's one plot thread, or one plot I should say, is them like it's like a pseudo heist of bad guys constantly trying to steal this statue from the archaeologists, and then Japanese James Bond comes in, and it's just a back and forth of trying to get this damn statue, which unlocks an ancient lion god out of a mountain. That's one plot. The second plot is alien apes.
Planet of the Apes.
Alien Planet of the Apes come down, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna kill you all with our Godzilla robot. That's the other plot.
Yep.
And the two of them merge at some point, like an hour and 30 minutes into like an hour and 40 minutes. And then it leads to one of the most awesome, spectacular brawls ever with Godzilla and Little Caesars fighting against Mecahgodzilla.
What a name.
What a
Caesars.
name, Little Caesars.
And it's not spelled like with, CEAS.
That's the weird part, because the way I've always had it spelled wasn't how the subtitles had it spelled. I don't know if that was an error in the subtitles. Those weren't necessarily official subtitles.
Oh, I thought it was actually spelled like C.
Yeah, it was spelled in the subtitles like SEE.
SE.
SAR.
Yeah, SAR.
SAR? Was that how it was in the subtitles we watched? Meanwhile, I've always known it spelled CAESAR. So, Caesar.
Yeah. Not
Anyway.
C, sir.
This one was a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
I wrote a lot of very angry notes on this one. Not angry, just
Confused.
confused,
Yeah.
frustrated. Wow, I wrote a lot of notes on this one. All right, well let's just get it going then, as we try and wake up. There's the shrine chick who I don't remember her. Oh, her name was Nami.
I didn't even bother to write it down.
I only know that because I wrote down her name was Nani.
I called her the dancer. That's what I refer to her as.
Yeah, there's a shrine maiden who worships the giant doggo.
Yeah.
And she predicts that King Ghidorah will destroy the world, and then King Ghidorah never shows up in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, she specifically predicts that there will be a giant monster that attacks.
Yeah.
But it shows stock footage of King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
Which is just odd. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah. No, I remember that very specifically because I was about to be like, Who were the monsters in the fight in this movie? Oh yeah, it was Mecahgodzilla, King Ghidorah. Wait a minute, no, that's not right.
Yeah, just Mecahgodzilla.
Yeah.
Did I miss that part, or is that where I like walked in?
That might have been
Right when I walked in.
well, that was like the very beginning. Like that was like immediately after the title cards. So that might have been when you're still settling in, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was almost immediately after the title cards. She has just a little stock footage mind flash forward,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and it's just a bunch of stock footage of the city being destroyed and King Ghidorah. Like it shows King Ghidorah like destroying the city,
Oh.
and then she's like, "Yeah, a giant monster's gonna show up."
Yeah, it's title cards, her dancing some sort of ritual dance, hallucinations about King Ghidorah,
Yeah,
who never shows up in the movie.
yeah. So that kind of kicks off the plot. There's this like ancient prophecy. Which I'm sorry. It starts with the shrine maiden dancing about King Ghidorah. Then it goes to the archaeologists who find the statue. That was the first thing that irritated me because I wrote down that no one respects this ancient archaeological discovery because everyone's manhandling the statue.
Oh yeah,
like
just
like
right
no
away.
no one would actually do if you found like an ancient burial ground with like ancient treasure or something like they said something like it was like remnants of a lost civilization or something because there's like hieroglyphics on the wall, and you know there's the statue just like in the dirt, and everyone just starts manhandling it. They take like flash photography on all the no.
Grab it and pass it around.
So it's one of those scientists, excuse me, who translates the prophecy off of the wall, and the prophecy said something along the lines of there's going to be a black mountain that appears above the clouds, and when that happens, there's going to be a monster that comes down, and two monsters are going to fight it. Now that's all fine and dandy, but the problem that I had was that she translated all of that from a single crayon drawn image of the Lion Man.
Yep. I remember that.
She got all of that.
Yep.
From a little lion dude drawn in crayon on the mountain.
Must be very detailed.
Yeah.
Very detailed drawing.
Then randomly a guy with a gun shows up and steals the statue. Literally out of nowhere. This is when they're back in their hotel. And a guy like straight up just appears out of like he materializes virtually out of thin air with a gun and then just takes the statue.
Yeah.
I wrote down that, and then there's a fight scene because one of the scientists or archaeologists, I can't talk right now. Thank you. One of them, the dude. So there's a little fisticuff scene, and I wrote down it was extremely disorientating. It was the best way I can put it. If you remember, I know we're all very tired right now, but if you remember in Godzilla vs. Megalon, we wrote down one of the positives was that all the fights were like intentionally filmed in a over the top way. Like all the fight scenes, you got people like jumping off walls and the camera was shaking everywhere just to add to the momentum of it. That was what they did with this one, only it was just two dudes strangling each other. So the camera's shaking everywhere and I couldn't see shit. And it was just two guys just punching each other and strangling each other. Like there was no reason why the camera needed to be shaking all over the place.
Well, not only that, but just the amount of shaking it was disorientating. Like,
yeah, it was. We're talking. Imagine like Cloverfield, but with two guys just punching each other.
Yeah, no, like in Godzilla vs. Megalon, I almost didn't even notice the shaky cam in that. It was just done a little bit to emphasize the action.
It was like tongue in cheek shake.
Yeah. In this one, it was like a fucking 9.0 earthquake was going off.
While these guys are strangling
the
each other.
intensity of one dude having his hands around another dude's throat.
It got to the point where I couldn't tell who was who because it was shaking that much. It was, God, why did they do that?
It was awful.
I also wrote down, like right off the bat, so I wrote down, there are so many issues I have with this general setup. I mean, this whole human plot, like the whole human drama. The human drama have never been the highlight of these, at least the early Showa films, but this one really takes the cake in just nonsense. I wrote down, like I have so many things I wrote down where I was like, that makes absolutely no sense. The first one being is that their prophecy of a giant monster showing up to kill us all, like that's their doomsday prophecy, and yet everyone knows Godzilla exists.
Yeah.
could you not have just predicted he was the prophecy when he showed up 30 years ago? I don't I don't understand. Just because there's a giant black cloud in the sky, does that mean that whatever monster shows up is the Doomsday one? What if Godzilla's son shows up when there's a giant black cloud? Is Godzilla's stupid little son the harbinger of death and destruction?
Apparently.
See, but
What if
I would actually be really interested in a movie where Godzilla's son is actually the monster of prophecy, and like the black cloud shows up, he gets struck by lightning and becomes like 10 times more powerful than his dad. That would
Okay.
actually be epic to me.
Okay. Well, how about this then?
On a completely unrelated side note,
Okay. Well, how about
you
this
just
then?
sold me on a new movie.
What if there's a black cloud in the sky when the Mothra larva is just dicking around in the city? Is everyone going, "Oh no, the giant worm is gonna destroy the world"? And then you call in Godzilla and it blows fire once, and Mothra goes flying like Team Rocket. Like
Blasting off.
this prophecy is illogical when you consider that everyone knows Godzilla exists. Not just Godzilla, all the monsters
The
exist.
Monster Island exists.
Monster Island exists. They have a whole island of monsters, but nothing matters unless there's a black. What if the black cloud just appears over Monster Island? Which one is the harbinger of death and destruction?
You mean like
Is it just a guessing game?
you mean like if it was
Exactly.
just a
Nobody
storm
will
cloud?
know. It's the perfect plan.
Just a stormy day, a storm
Yeah.
cloud,
What
and
if there's just a storm cloud over it? Is which what? It doesn't make sense. That's just the first one though. I'll jump ahead. I'll jump ahead in my notes just while we're on the subject. Like just on the topic of how their plan, or not the plan, just the logic of it all makes absolutely no sense. Where is it? That's right. So part of the prophecy is, as I just stated, a monster will show up when there's a black cloud in the sky. And then to fight that monster who's going to like destroy the world, 2 monsters are going to show up to fight it. Doesn't specify what 2 monsters. Just 2 monsters, like 2 heroes will show up to fight the monster. And one of them turns out to be the Little Caesars, the lion, the big doggo
Yeah.
that the statue summons. Here's the problem though, because I could be wrong, but I think they implied that King Caesar was always going to be one of the 2 monsters, like from the prophecy. Like King Caesar was just written in the prophecy as one of the 2 saviors. I think. I could be mistaken.
I'm pretty sure it's heavily implied, considering the cave painting is literally of a
King
fucking
Caesar.
lion.
Yeah. I don't think it's directly stated, but it's heavily implied that he was always like destined to be one of the 2 saviors. Okay. So here's my problem with that. And I wrote a big chain of events leading up to this one. So I wrote a big chain of events leading up to this one. we had a pair of headphones just taken from a ghost.
Yeah.
yeah, it was just floating away.
So this statue is so significant because it'll supposedly awaken King Caesar, the giant lion doggo in the mountain, right?
Yeah.
A giant god monster.
Yeah.
The problem is that this statue does absolutely jack shit. They get the statue, and all it like, you get the statue and you have to place it on top of one specific roof at a very specific time of day, like Indiana Jones style. Like it's got to be like the 6th sunset on the 3rd month, and the sun will align with just the right amount. Will like shine a beam of light into the statue, and the statue will reflect it onto the mountain. And then all that does is it just blows up the mountain. Doesn't even wake him up. It just blows up the mountain. Like they could have just dug him out. And the other part is that so this statue, like the Shrine Maiden, she's part of this like royal family who like watches over the statue and King Caesar and all that, right?
Mm.
So they know all about it, which means they have to know he's in that mountain, which means that statue is even more useless because there's a whole family of people who know there's a giant lion in the mountain. But beyond that, to actually wake him up, because the statue doesn't wake him up, he has to be sung awoken by his waifu.
Oh yeah,
I
wrote a note on that.
And I wrote down, then the statue is even more pointless because they could just dig him out and then just sing, wake him up.
How can you even hear her if she was like miles away?
I really, my brain started hurting as I wrote these down. I started adding on like dozens of question marks. Just the logic makes no sense. If the waifu knows where King Caesar is in the mountain, why have a statue? If it takes us, how does she know? Like, how does she know this song to wake him up?
Yeah.
Like, do they just pass down this song? Do they write it down on a lyric sheet and make you memorize it, but never sing it because it'll just wake him up in the mountain? Have they woken him up before? Then why doesn't everyone know he's in the mountain? Why does he just crawl back into the same mountain and it just reforms over? It makes no sense. So going back to the alien Planet of the Apes thing, they had the statue literally right next to the alien base.
Yeah.
Yep.
They did.
The alien apes were looking for that statue, and they couldn't just walk outside and turn left and be like, oh, hey, it's that statue.
Yeah.
The plot is a mess. I wrote down. It's also. Yeah, that's right. I'll come back to that thought. We can back it up now. That was my little rant on the stupid statue plot thread.
Yeah. No, that was a mess. I love their what Godzilla's made out of in this movie and the next movie.
What he's made out of?
Space titanium.
Oh, you're talking about Mecahgodzilla.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did I say Godzilla? I meant to say Mecahgodzilla.
Yeah, space titanium.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. No, I like how he grabs a chip of it off the ground. He takes it, or this isn't the same archaeologist as the.
This is just another scientist.
This is just another scientist.
Yeah. He's in the cave
just
where the
decides
statue
to randomly
was.
explore a cave system.
Yeah.
He like falls down, finds a little shard of metal, and goes, "Oh, I should take this."
Yeah.
He takes it back home to, I think it's his dad or his teacher or something.
Something like that. Another scientist who
And the
studies
scientist
it.
goes, "Oh yeah, this is space titanium."
Yeah.
Which-
I wrote down on that one that everyone sure loves to jump to conclusions.
Which, so either he's seen it before, in which case, where the hell did the space titanium come from? Or he's just like, oh yeah, it's space titanium, which this is going a little further into it than I really should. I realize that their version of space titanium is like, it's supposed to be something like unobtainium or whatever, where it's some new random metal alloy or whatever.
It's just a new
But-
metal, yeah.
The way the way elements work is it doesn't matter where the fuck the atom comes from. It's the exact same goddamn atom no matter where you are. So an atom of hydrogen is an atom of hydrogen. Doesn't matter where in space you find it. Titanium is one of those elements that you find on our periodic table. So it doesn't matter if the titanium comes from outer fucking space. It's still just titanium.
No. You missed the part where they said space titanium though. That means it's from the space periodic table. Thus it's new.
Okay.
See that's where you messed up in your logic there. Clearly you weren't paying
So
attention.
there's a space table. So there's like
There's a space table. Yeah,
space helium and
there's a space table.
space oxygen.
It's a space office.
I mean, like,
It's just-
they didn't even try to explain it as like some new rare isotope of titanium.
yeah, they did. They said it's space titanium.
Okay, whatever.
That's all they needed to say.
Oh no. Just
Ju-
calling it space titanium to me is irritating.
Just as irritating as how. So spoilers. They the humans defeat the aliens, or at least destroy their base when they realize that what was it? They like, because all the space titanium. I don't think they implied that it was indestructible, but they definitely like it's definitely like stronger than normal stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they destroy the alien headquarters by like using like supersonic like magnetic force field or something like that. But they do that because remember the Mr. Doctor Professor guy, he had a pipe that he could split in half, and that like conducted like supersonic magnetic force fields.
Right.
So that's how they destroy the headquarters, by putting one half of his pipe on each side of the thing. I find that just as irritating as the space titanium thing because he just had that when he was introduced.
Yeah.
So it's not like they made it as like a countermeasure to this. It's just the first scientist dude goes, "Hey, check out this space metal I found," and he goes, "Oh, that's cool. Check out this pipe I have."
Yeah.
And he goes on to talk about the pipe and like what it can do for like a minute or two. Basically, just looking at the camera and saying, "This is gonna be important later." Winks,
Yep.
and then shoves it up his ass.
Yeah.
Doesn't even smoke it.
Yeah, it doesn't even smoke out of it. Like it could have just been just a hunk of metal, but it's a pipe and he doesn't do anything. I'm very disappointed. I expected one scene where he smokes out of that space pipe. Yeah, all of the human characters are really just there to provide like direct exposition, which just got annoying. Also, everyone's a ninja. Like not even the human characters, like literally every person, every humanoid in the film is a ninja. People just show up out of nowhere and everyone is surprised. Everyone gets the jump on literally everyone. There will be a scene where a human gets a jump on one of the space apes. And when I say get the jump on, I mean like they sneak up behind them out of nowhere, pull out a gun and start shooting at them. And then, everyone's surprised. And then in the same scene, apes will get the jump on that human who just got the jump on the other space apes. And then James Bond will come out of nowhere. Everyone is a ninja. There was an absolutely stupid and just infuriating sequence in the film that was basically a giant middle finger, at least how I took it.
When your entire party is made up of rogues.
There's a sequence on a cruise ship.
Oh.
And the whole thing is a waste of time. And they could have just cut the whole thing out of the movie.
Oh, okay. No, yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So one of the ninja apes shows up materializes out of thin air and steals the statue from, I'm sorry, let me back up a second. He sneaks into her room when she's asleep and looks at her with a very creepy smile. and then steals the statue out of her purse. Which she keeps it in her purse like a box of Andy's chocolates or something. But so he just steals it out of her purse, out of this very nice, elaborate, like ribbon tied box.
If you don't mind, I will back up for a second and just say that when Mr. Science Fair's professor guy, the older dude with the pipe, I'll call him Pipe Man for sake of argument. When he gets the statue and they're checking it out, this alien is the same alien that attacked Mr. Professor Scientist Pipe Man.
Oh, okay. So there's a returning ninja alien.
Yeah.
Not that it makes a difference at the end of this sequence because he's never seen again. I don't think.
You're right about that. I just wanted to bring that up for the sake of argument real quick.
Right. So the space ape, he steals the statue successfully and he starts running out the cruise ship, and then the other archaeologist, the dude, he shows up and he's like, "Hey, he's stealing the statue." And then they get into this super elaborate chase sequence, which also just gave me a headache because the camera's shaking everywhere.
Yep.
And they're just running down a cruise ship. The space ape runs like onto the second deck and starts throwing like lawn chairs at the guy. When I say lawn chairs, I mean like full plastic chairs. The kind of stuff you'd never see on a cruise ship. But he starts throwing them at the guy, and that's enough to have the scientist lose track of the space ape. Like straight up loses him on an empty cruise ship. There's no one on deck, absolutely no one, and he loses him because he had two chairs thrown at him. And then the space ape, he almost gets away, and then James Bond comes out of nowhere. Again, a ninja, truly a ninja, comes out of nowhere and like gets a headshot on the space ape, and the space ape falls into the ocean. But he takes the statue with him, so everyone's like, "Oh shit, there goes the statue down to the depths of the ocean." Then it hard cuts to like the Japanese embassy, and the archaeologist is like, "Nah, that was a fake statue. Here's the real one."
Yeah, no, it's a solid 5-minute action chase scene of the scientist
loosely
fighting tooth and nail
over a
for
fake
this
statue.
fucking statue, only to be like, "Oh, thank you, captain of the ship, for keeping the real statue hidden."
Yeah.
Aha!
Yeah,
Pulled a fast one on those aliens.
It makes no sense. I mean, let me rephrase that because using a duplicate as a decoy makes perfect sense. What doesn't make sense is that this guy chased the space ape as hard, like he was genuinely trying to get back that statue. Yeah. Maybe give a slight chase to kind of not make it obvious that he's taking a fake one, but He went hard. Like that was a 5-minute chase sequence.
He almost died at the end.
He almost died.
He risked his life halfway through, and then he almost died at the end because he was like facing down the alien who had a gun.
Fake statue. It'd be different if he didn't know it was a fake, but he's the one. Everyone else didn't know. Like no one else but this guy knew it was a fake.
Yeah.
He alone told the captain of the ship, like, "Hey, hide this real statue and I'm going to use this fake one." So that whole sequence made no sense, and again was basically just a giant middle finger.
Yeah.
Let's see. I wrote down Tommy Wiseau as part of the Men in Black. I'm assuming that was Japanese James Bond because he kind of looked like Tommy Wiseau.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. I remember why I wrote this down. This one, again, we're kind of jumping all over the place, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just like the movie. It's a mess.
Yeah.
Like halfway through or so, maybe 2/3 of the way through, Tommy Wiseau joins up with the main characters, whoever they were, the archaeologists or the scientists. I'm not too sure. I lost track. He joins up with them, and because throughout the whole movie, this guy, and I say Tommy Wiseau joined the Men in Black because it's this creeper in like all black, like a black like trench coat basically with black sunglasses and black gloves. He's always got a cigarette in his mouth. He's always just lingering in the background, just watching the main characters like a creeper.
Yep. Stalker.
Yeah, he does nothing up until he gets a headshot on the ape in the cruise ship. He just watches them. And so randomly out of nowhere, he shows up again in like halfway through, 2/3 of the way through the movie, where he just reveals like who he is and what he's been doing. And that's another one that gave me a headache because what he said also made absolutely no sense in the slightest. So he said he was basically part of the Men in Black, basically.
Yep, I remember that.
Because more specifically, he said that he was part of like a secret government agency, like basically the Men in Black. And they knew all along about these alien space apes, that they've been watching them all this time. They knew since day one. And they know all about their plan. They know where their base is. They know about Mecahgodzilla. They know all of this. And that they've just chosen just to watch them to assess their threat level, despite seeing like 2 days ago Mecahgodzilla destroying an entire city and these space apes like killing a bunch of people. I wrote down his exact words, how much of a threat they are. Those were his exact words. He chose to observe them to see how much of a threat they were. And that he also chooses to uses the statue, the real statue, as bait for the space monkeys. But he just said that they already know where they are and where they are, like what they've been doing.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Just kill the monkeys. Just kill them all. Like shit. It's not that hard. Then there's a whole sequence where the characters get kidnapped by the space monkeys and thrown into space jail or monkey jail, I should say. I mean, it's underground. It's not no one's ever in space. And this human scientists, I think it was James Bond who was let out of prison, but it was the human scientists and the archaeologists that were kept in there. And the space monkeys like decided to try and kill him. And they did that by just putting a bunch of heat gas in the room.
Yeah.
And like they weren't keeping him alive for anything. They just decided to kill him. But why heat gas?
Well,
just shoot them.
Yeah.
If you want to kill him this fast, is that really the fastest way you can kill him? They showed all the monkeys have guns.
Yeah. Even better than that. So I remember having this whole fucking thing. Unless no, it was this movie. Just thought I'd double check that real quick. So the alien plan, so to speak, is to build Mecahgodzilla, take it down to Earth, kill Earthlings, new planet for them.
Basically.
So they get Mecahgodzilla, take it down to Earth. They get into one fight in the city. Godzilla atomic breaths Mecahgodzilla's head.
Yep.
And the aliens go, they get Mecahgodzilla to retreat, but then they go, we don't know how to fucking fix this thing. So they take Dr. Professor Man, Pipe Dude, and use him to fix Mecahgodzilla by threatening the female scientist, who I guess is his daughter, and one of the male scientists.
Yeah, they kidnap they kidnap a couple of the human scientists just as leverage against the Mr. Dr. Professor guy.
This is kind of like leading up into the heat gas. So they kidnap those guys, make Dr. Professor Man fix Mecahgodzilla for them.
Right.
Which already they're in a bad state if they're relying on a human to fix their space robot.
Yep.
Just saying. But then to make matters even worse, Dr. Professor Man finishes the repairs on Mecahgodzilla.
He just fixes it. He doesn't even sabotage it. He just fixes it.
Yeah, which that's a missed opportunity on his part, but whatever. I would have given that one I give that one the benefit of the doubt, as in like he's just too scared to try anything because he doesn't want his daughter to die.
Clearly the apes don't know any different. He could have like put in like a little remote control device to like control it from afar. They'd never know.
Jaguar style. But what I'm getting at here is that then he finishes the repairs. The head ape like talks to him or whatever, taunts him a little bit, and then throws him in prison and tries to kill him.
And then heat gas.
Yeah, and then heat gas him, which it's like, okay.
At that point,
so you just killed the only person basically on this planet that can repair your robot if it breaks again. Fucking 10 out of 10. Great plan.
And then they use heat gas, and they could have just shot them.
Yeah, exactly.
Which gives them a chance to escape. I don't remember how they escape. But either way, they escape naturally because they're using heat gas instead of just shooting them.
Fourth scientist and Tommy Wiseau show up.
That's
infiltrate
right.
the base.
That's right, because everyone's a ninja.
Yeah. And
yeah. So they all break out, and then the characters keep showing up out of nowhere for no reason. And when I say characters, I don't mean established characters. I mean it keeps introducing more and more and more and more and more characters that just appear. They materialize out of thin air. Because then the main characters all show up at the Shrine Maiden's place. And then more FBI agents show up. And they're like, hey, yeah, this is me. We're with James Bond. How you guys doing? And then they're never seeing the movie again. Anyway, so then that brings up part of the prophecy, which is, I forgot about this part. So not only does there have to be a giant black cloud in the sky and also a monster shows up, but before two heroes can show up to save it, the sun has to rise in the west. Was that what it was? I think so.
yeah.
Yeah. Just some doomsday bullshit. Except that in this film, they explain away the sun literally rising in the west by it being a mirage.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere. Like, no, I'm sorry, not in the middle of nowhere. In this like little town, everyone just sees a mirage of the sun rising in the west.
Yeah, which is they try to explain away as it's like the sun rising in the east, weirdly reflecting off the western sky.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No.
What?
So yeah, then that pretty much goes into the fight. Which before I get into that, I'll back up into a previous note I had, which is the last thing I have to say about the human plot line or plot lines. Is that I don't know if you guys noticed. You definitely didn't notice. You probably didn't notice. This is like the exact same plot as King Kong Escapes, but with apes instead of aliens. I'm sorry, but with aliens, ape aliens instead of anime villains. Thanks.
No.
You got the three. I wrote down all the similarities. You got the three human characters.
Yeah.
The villain creates a metal version of the Earth's strongest monster.
Mm-hmm.
Mecahgodzilla has a mechanical issue.
Yeah.
Which leads to the villain kidnapping all three human characters and using two of them as leverage to make the one main human character fix the robot monster.
Mm-hmm.
The villain has a connection with the guy he uses the guy he convinces to fix it. In King Kong Escapes, it was the anime villain and
that dude.
That dude. I
Yeah.
forget his name, which is unfortunate because the anime villain says his full name. But in this film, it's Mr. Dr. Professor guy. Somehow the alien ape knows about him. I don't know if you remember that. The alien ape like boss was like, oh yeah, I've heard about this guy. I know all about him. I've read his file and all that stuff, which is why he kidnaps those specific human characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a connection between the main villain and Mr. Doc Professor. And the base, I said this when we were watching the movie, the base in this, like the alien base in Godzilla vs. Mecahgodzilla has like the exact same set as King Kong Escapes. They just took the plot of King Kong Escapes and put it into a shittier movie.
Yeah.
And instead of, I guess, freezing them,
Yeah.
they heat them up.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing I noticed.
For me, the thing that annoyed me the most about the movie is just how out of left field everything comes. It's like
Yeah,
out of nowhere, the alien plotline started up. It's like you had the scientist plotline discovering the statue, and then just like randomly hard cut to the aliens in their base.
This has the same amount of wackiness and quirkiness as something like Godzilla vs. Megalon. The difference is that this film takes it seriously, where Godzilla vs. Megalon just knew what it was and had a fun time with it. Maybe that was unintentional. I mean, that was probably unintentional. The fact that Godzilla vs. Megalon is as fun as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't change the fact that the end product is still just a fun, like, wacky, no shits given film, while this one is trying to take it a bit more serious, which results in a pretty stale and boring, very boring human plot thread.
Yeah.
On the flip side, because I spent a lot of time just bitching about the human plot threads. On the plus side, the monster stuff is amazing.
Yep, the monster fights were the monster fights.
It's all just wasn't necessarily over the top, but it is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's why I haven't really touched on any of that until now, because I didn't really want to get them jumbled together. It's unfortunate that the human plot threads are so heavily focused on. But the monster action in this one is genuinely probably some of the best out of the Showa era. Some of the best, just because of just how over the top they go. It starts off with Mecahgodzilla, like disguised as Godzilla, which that makes no sense, but I'll take it because it's just so. I mean, it leads to a genuinely cool reveal, and the foreshadowing is pretty decent. I mean, you yourself were like, "Why is Godzilla destroying the city?"
Yeah, but all it took was that one hit to the arm to reveal metal. Be like, oh, that's Mecahgodzilla. Okay.
Oh yeah. Again, it makes like no practical sense why they would disguise it as Godzilla in the first place. I'm just saying, if you take that for what it is, it's a cool setup and reveal. But like separating it from, because I mean, we've already established the human, like all the other stuff is already nonsensical enough. There's no point in trying to say that makes no sense. Because it obviously doesn't, but for what it is, it's a cool reveal. So you got Mecahgodzilla dressed up as Godzilla, like he's going out for Halloween, and he just destroys a city,
trick or treat,
and then he goes up and just completely massacres Anguirus. Like rest in peace, Anguirus. Like Mecahgodzilla like wrecks him.
I completely forgot Anguirus was in this movie.
Yeah, I mean he's not in it long. He's not in it long just because he like gets murdered. Like Mecahgodzilla like kicks him around, throws him around everywhere. He like splits his jaw open, he rips out his tongue. Gore is like pouring down Anguirus' mouth. Mecahgodzilla like kicks him away, and then he just retreats and he disappears out of the franchise.
Forgot about
This is the last time you're gonna see Anguirus until like the final film in this entire franchise.
He used to get his jaw.
I think it's implied that he was trying to like monster call for Godzilla, but yeah, he runs away and is never seen again.
Yeah. And so Mecahgodzilla continues its rampage dressed up as Godzilla. Leads to like an entire city like block at night. Leads to one of the most ridiculous like Godzilla appearances where he's just chilling inside of a building and just like stands up out of a building.
Yeah, what was with that?
I mean, it's I don't know if that's more ridiculous than when he was just chilling in the literal dirt in Godzilla vs. Mothra, but I mean, it looked cool. Unlike him just erupting out of the dirt, this one, I don't know. It served a purpose in the sense that Mecahgodzilla was destroying the city and the set looked really cool. All the pyrotechnics and explosions were top notch. Again, some of the best special effects out of the Showa era, at least towards this last stretch, at least. Yeah, everything looked really nice. Mecahgodzilla went total beast mode in the end. When I said earlier that Mecahgodzilla was fully loaded, where's my notes? I wrote down everything. Here we go. I wrote down that Mecahgodzilla is OP as shit. So Mecahgodzilla, this guy's he's got eye lasers. He's got a mouth laser. He's got a chest laser. He's got finger rockets, toe rockets, knee rockets. He can fly. He has a 360-degree shield, which like protects him from everything. And he can freely rotate every hinge. Like his head can spin around 360 degrees. His arms can flip around. He can like freely rotate everything on his body. And like every orifice on his metal body is like a missile launcher of some degree.
Yep.
It's badass. And leads to some of the most over-the-top Michael Bay-ish explosions. Because the final fight is a 2v1 where Mecahgodzilla's... It's two monsters against Mecahgodzilla, and they're still getting their ass kicked. You got Godzilla and Little Caesars. As Godzilla's like trying to just stay standing up. Little Caesars just trying to deliver a hot, fresh $5 pizza. And then Mecahgodzilla just annihilates them by just unloading just an entire armory's worth of missiles. It's so great. It's a genuinely really cool fight. With a pretty impressive like just wide shot where you got King Caesar in the background, Godzilla in the foreground, and Mecahgodzilla smack dab in the middle as Mecahgodzilla's head spins around 360 as he just like destroys both monsters at the same time.
Yep.
They needed to call in more monsters.
Yeah, I was saying during the film that this is what Destroy All Monsters should have been, because Mecahgodzilla, with all of this weaponry, seems like he could hold his own against like 10 monsters, unlike King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
Mecahgodzilla did to Anguirus what 5 monsters did to King Ghidorah. I'll put it that way. So yeah, Godzilla just gets wrecked. Like there's a point where Mecahgodzilla flies by Godzilla and like turns his neck into a blood like geyser. Like Godzilla just starts spewing blood all over the place. His mouth, like his face by the end of the film is just messed up.
Yep.
And this leads to your note that you were pondering over, where Godzilla turns Super Saiyan. Because earlier in the film, randomly, this has absolutely no explanation. Godzilla like gets struck by lightning like several times. This is like again way earlier in the film.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like after he gets his ass kicked the first time, he swims back to Monster Island.
Yeah, after his first fight with Mecahgodzilla, he swims back to Monster Island, and after he's done getting wrecked by Mecahgodzilla, he gets wrecked by the cosmos, where he just gets like just lightning bolt after lightning bolt. Like he gets, and it's not like
4 or 5 of them.
It takes like 4 or 5 of them. And it's not like they're powering him up like in something like what was it, Ebra, where like a lightning bolt like wakes him up and like powers him. No, he's getting like destroyed by these lightning bolts until I guess I don't know. It like. I don't know, pulls a Jimmy Neutron, has a brain blast, and like molecularly fuses with these lightning bolts, because all of a sudden his spikes start like sparking, and then that's all, and then like he starts like there's like a Super Saiyan like outline around him, and then that's all that happens for that, like at that point in the film. Cut to the end of the film where he's getting absolutely ass blasted by Mecahgodzilla. He goes Super Saiyan and turns him into like a super magnet out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like 2 like electrical stations like just fly over to his chest, and then like he starts using the Force basically, because Mecahgodzilla's trying to fly away, and Godzilla like raises his hand and like pulls Mecahgodzilla in. He like turns his head and Mecahgodzilla goes flying that way. He turns into a Jedi Master at the end of it basically.
Yeah.
And then Godzilla decapitates Mecahgodzilla, which is spectacular. And then Little Caesars goes back into the oven and
takes another nap.
Takes another long nap. And also just disappears out of the franchise, basically.
Trollable.
And that was Godzilla vs. Mecahgodzilla, basically, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Again, all the human stuff, very, 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 very unnecessarily convoluted and boring. But the monster stuff was very, very fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes up for it, but it definitely helps. If it had this much just boring human stuff and then led to a pretty mediocre fight like Destroy All Monsters, This would probably be up there in my least favorites of the Showa era, but just the spectacular monster, just gore and all that really does help. But again, I don't know by how much.
Yeah. I mean, like in that, it'd be like basically you cut out all the human drama and you just make a montage of the monster fights, and that would be an infinitely better movie than the movie as a whole, to me.
A bit, yeah. But yeah, that's Godzilla vs. Mecahgodzilla. You guys got any final things to say on this one before I move on to the few notes I have on it?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Said your piece on it?
I give it a shrine dancer over a volcano.
Sounds good.
I don't know what I
is your
gave.
legit score?
I don't know what I gave that King Kong, but now that you bring it up, it is the same. So I'll give it the same score.
But it's worse. It's the same, but it's not as fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that this one didn't have an anime villain.
Yeah.
Apparently
It's
not.
truly what it was missing. If the anime villain returned, oof.
It
Dude,
would
that would be the
It
greatest
would have
crossover
been, it would
ever.
have been amazing. But you're giving it the same score of whatever you gave King Kong
Yeah,
Escapes?
I don't know what I gave it.
I don't remember what you
Yeah.
gave it either. I feel like it was like a 12 out of 10. So you're giving Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 12 out of 10?
10 out of 10 then.
10 out of 10.
Minus 2.
Minus
Yeah.
2. Minus 2 for the lack of anime villain. I give this one a 2v1.
Done correctly.
A 2v1, yeah. All right, so some little fun facts about Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. This was once again directed by Jun Fukuda, who basically took over after Ishiro Honda. This is unfortunately Jun Fukuda's last film, at least in this franchise. As I already stated, this is Anguirus' last appearance for like 30 years.
He needs to fix his pride.
This is one of, if not the bloodiest Godzilla film ever made. Which I might say it's the bloodiest. I mean, Anguirus is like spewing blood. Godzilla's neck becomes a geyser. It's definitely, at the very least, it's definitely tied for the bloodiest Godzilla film ever made. It's the first Godzilla film to have a beam lock, like a true anime style beam lock, when Godzilla and Mecahgodzilla like shoot beams at each other and it just like locks like a true like Dragon Ball Z Naruto
Yep,
fashion.
I remember what you're talking about.
It doesn't last long, but it is the first one to feature it, at least in these films. This last note is directly tied to the U.S. alternate title, which I'll just tell you now is Godzilla versus the Cosmic Monster. Originally, yeah, Godzilla versus the Cosmic Monster. Not that much of a stretch, but not as cool as Mecahgodzilla.
Yeah.
Originally, that name was Godzilla versus the Bionic Monster. However,
That would have made even more sense, though.
Yeah, they had to change it because at the time, Universal Studios sued the shit out of them, claiming that the name Godzilla versus the Bionic Monster was too similar to the Bionic Woman. So they sued them for it.
Okay.
And forced them to change the title to Godzilla versus the Cosmic Monster. Not sure why they didn't just change to Godzilla versus Mecahgodzilla, though. Still would have been better than the Bionic Monster.
Yeah.
Yep.
Way better.
Speaking of alternate titles, though, you ready?
Bring it.
Cool. These are all equally stupid, so I'm just going to go straight down the list, shall I? So, starting us off, we got Spain. Godzilla versus Cyber Godzilla, the Destruction Machine.
I mean,
It does make sense in a way.
that would make even more sense than an American title.
Still, maybe Godzilla versus Cyber Godzilla. The fact that they tacked on the Destruction Machine just makes it kind of redundant and funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a stupid title for something that could have just as easily been summed up to Mecahgodzilla or even Cyber Godzilla.
Yeah. That's fair.
Mexico's title, Mecha King against Godzilla. Basically, all of these titles stem from the fact that no one had the common knowledge to just call it Mecahgodzilla. So they all try and just like recreate the name while keeping the same idea. So Mecha King against Godzilla. That's Mexico's title.
Okay.
They tried to like squeeze King Caesar's in there or something.
Yeah.
I'll save Germany for last. That's a fun one. Italy is probably my favorite, which is quite simply Godzilla versus the robot.
Again, still more accurate than the American title.
It's plain and simple.
Poland's is probably the most accurate one of all of them. But it's funny just because I'm very curious to know how they fixed this later on. Poland's title for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was Terror of Mechagodzilla, which is funny because the next film is titled Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Oh, no.
Wow.
So I'm very curious on how they self-corrected that one. Maybe they changed Terror of Mechagodzilla to Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. That would be funny. Which brings me to Germany. Would anyone like to guess what Germany's title is?
Frankenstein versus the space robot.
No.
Frankenstein's robot.
No. I'm very impressed at Germany, while at the same time, why? They do not have Frankenstein in it. Germany's title for Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla is King Kong versus Godzilla.
Oh my God.
Wait.
Wow.
King Kong versus Godzilla.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what's wrong with Germany.
Wow. So they knew the plot was the same.
Oh boy. All right. Well, bringing it back to Poland with Terror of Mechagodzilla. Let's talk about Terror of Mechagodzilla. Oh boy.
No.
Not Terror of Mechagodzilla, just King Kong versus Godzilla. God damn it, Germany. Terror of Mechagodzilla, 1975, the final film of the Showa era. What?
No, carry on.
All right. So let's starting off with the very brief plot recap. This one is a lot better in terms of the human drama, in terms of being coherent and not just a bunch of nonsense. This is I kind of have to say this instead of saving it for later. This is one of the few legitimate direct sequels in the entire Showa era. This is a direct sequel to King Kong versus Godzilla. That is, of course, Germany's title for Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. You could also say this is a direct sequel to Poland's Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Oh yeah.
In which the space apes come back for more. Only this time they let's see how do I put this. So you got the scientist who is he goes a little batshit crazy over his years because everyone keeps humiliating him and mocking him and telling him his research is shit. So the space apes basically say, "Hey, we believe you. Come work with us, and we'll give you the opportunity to strike revenge against humans." And he goes, "Hell yeah!"
Which, may I just start out by saying how stupid it is that people were like making fun of him and his research, considering that at this point Godzilla's have been around for what? 20 years?
Well, no, they said that they were mocking his research like before the original Godzilla. Like they said that he's been a scientist for like 40 plus years, and that like way back early in his career is when he theorized all this, and that's why he was mocked out of like his career.
Right, but I mean, like, still, even if it happened 40 years ago, 20 years ago, Godzilla comes up, wrecks Japan.
Yeah,
You don't think somebody would have been like, "Hey, remember that research you did? I'm sorry for making fun of you. Could you come and, like, help us out?"
yeah. I mean, there's a slight continuity with that, but I'll overlook it considering it's again far more strongly written than the last film. At least in terms of the setup for everything. So anyway, so the space apes show back up and they're like, "Hey, yeah, well, let's team up, brah." And he goes, "Sounds good. Let's do it. GG." And then it's basically just Mecahgodzilla and this giant, stupid sounding fish just start destroying the city.
Your seahorse.
And then the seahorse, the giant stupid seahorse shows up and they destroy the city and Godzilla has to stop him. That's basically the plot in a nutshell. It pretty much does it. I also can't really save this one for the notes just because it ties into a lot of the notes that I wrote. Not only was this the final film of the Showa era, but they did bring back Ishiro Hondo once more, as well as Akira Ifukube for the final film of the era. And yeah, the first note I had was that I think it immediately shows. I mean, compared to the last film, at least, there's an immediate difference in tone and cinematography. Maybe not the writing, because they don't, the directors of these ones, they don't write their own films, at least not usually. So I don't know who the writer is. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not true. That's part of the note. I don't know who the writer was for the last film and how many films he had written prior to that. I do know that this one had a brand new writer, which definitely contributes to the stronger plot threads. Such as, again, I wrote down, like, it gets into things very early on. And one of the first notes I wrote down is that there's actual character development in this one, which is not only an improvement from the last film, but an improvement probably from the last like 5 or 6 films. And yeah, going back into that. So yeah, it sets up this scientist. I forget his name. I don't think I wrote it down. Doesn't really matter. So you got this human scientist who basically spent his entire career theorizing a way to control. Was it specifically monsters or was it marine life? I think it was marine life, which then, like, his research like led him to basically the Loch Ness monster. I mean, it's not the Loch Ness monster, but that's what it was in a nutshell.
Wait, are you talking about evil scientist right now?
Yes.
Mifune. I just started calling him Moth throughout my notes.
All right, so the mafia.
Yeah.
So yeah, he spent his entire, he dedicated his career to researching like how to control marine life, which basically led him to the discovery of a literal dinosaur, which is why I just referred to as the Loch Ness monster. Yeah. So he discovered this giant monster and tried to like prove its existence to the world, and that's when he was basically shunned out of life.
Yep.
Chi-Chi. So he continued his research like in private, but he basically went a little batshit crazy. And what was it? He lost his wife or something like that. He lost his wife and I think lost his daughter. And that's when the space ape showed up and they saved his daughter's life by turning her into a cyborg.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how the daughter got into trouble, but
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember, and I don't think it's shown exactly how her life was in danger the first time. But that's more incentive for him to join the space ape cause, to go bananas, if you will. Because not only is he a little unhinged, but also they saved his daughter and turned her into a cyborg. Yep. And when I say turn her into a cyborg, I mean they basically took an old school. You remember those like original Apple computers, the ones that were just boxes?
Yeah.
They disassembled that and they took all the hardware out and they just put it in her chest. That's how they turned her into a cyborg.
Yeah. With a little bit of like oversized watch internals too. There's like
there's a lot of like gears.
Yeah, there's a lot of gears. And
it's
like
very
spinning.
It's a very 70s cyborg.
Yeah.
Put it that way. I mean, like physically she looks the same, but then whenever like they dissect her, it's like, yeah, it looks like a clock.
Yeah.
Like a giant like oversized clock inside.
Wonder if they have to wind her up every 24 hours.
Probably. It reminded me a lot of the villain from the original Hellboy.
Yeah.
One of the villains. I forget what his name was, but the guy made a sand where you had to wind them up every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of that. Let's see. I wrote down the flow of scenes is much better than the last film. Now I want to clarify, when I say the flow of scenes, I don't necessarily mean the pacing. I mean the literal flow scene by scene.
Yeah.
It flows a lot more naturally as opposed to the last film, which just jump cut all over the place. This one actually, like, all the scenes lead into each other naturally. The pacing has some issues, like it's fine up until like the 2/3 mark, and then it just kind of overstays its welcome. I definitely feel like they could have trimmed it up a bit, but it's an overall improvement. I'll put it that way.
Yep.
Well, one of the things I did write down, which was a bit unfortunate, it kind of detracts a bit from it. While on the one hand, the human elements are stronger than previous films, the takeaway from that is that Godzilla doesn't even make an appearance until like halfway through the movie, which kind of plays into that pacing issue that I was mentioning. I definitely feel like they could have trimmed it up a little bit, especially after Godzilla shows up. This, I could be wrong, but I think this has the least amount of screen time out of the entire franchise for Godzilla. Like he shows up midway through the film for like a couple minutes, and then he shows up for a couple minutes in the last fight. But it's really not. It's almost not a Godzilla movie, which makes sense because it's called Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
They try and compensate for that by throwing in the fish a lot more. Unfortunately, the fish is not nearly as cool as Godzilla because it's a fish that sounds really stupid.
Yep.
It has this really annoying cackle. I'm not even going to attempt to replicate it, but it's very annoying. It does make a couple smart choices in the sense that it's a direct sequel, and yet it chooses to either ignore or just straight out retcon some things from the previous film. For example, the aliens do not turn into apes when they die now. That's not even mentioned. No one even mentions that they're apes. That was a smart choice. Because in the last film, I don't think we mentioned it. But when they die, I keep calling them space apes because they're apes, but they look like they're disguised as humans. And so when they die, they morph back into apes.
Well,
But
not even when they died necessarily, but even if they just take any damage, one of them gets like hit upside the head and half his face is apified already.
Yeah, it's like you break their concentration and they morph back into apes. The problem is that the special effects looked absolutely dog shit when they morphed into apes.
Yep.
It was either like a slideshow of them like putting on the makeup to do the apes thing, or just hard cut basically to them in like first you got a human and then you got a guy in a rubber mask as an ape. It looked very jarring and it just didn't work.
It was especially bad when there was like a regular human next to the ape while it was transforming, because it would be like a weird slideshow with the human moving frame by frame while the ape was transforming frame by frame. It
just didn't work. So in this film, they made the very smart decision to just ignore that and just not even have it be a thing. Again, it's not, goddamn. It's not like they like try and backtrack and say they're not space apes. They just ignore that detail, which again helps because then they don't got to be bogged down by stupid special effects, or not stupid, bad special effects.
Yeah.
The concept on paper is cool and all if done correctly, but I definitely wouldn't want them to detract from anything else just to make the ape's transformation look cooler. The alien outfits are wackier in this one, but I would probably say for the better, because in the previous film, the outfits for the alien apes was basically just a silver jumpsuit. There really wasn't a whole lot to them. That is, there wasn't a whole lot to distinguish or to tell you that they're aliens, because again, they never turned into apes. So it was just a bunch of dudes in silver jumpsuits just walking around. In this one, at least, they give them more sophisticated suits and give them giant damn, it's on the tip of my tongue. Not Star Wars. What was the parody of Star Wars?
Spaceballs.
Thank you, Spaceballs. They gave them like giant Spaceballs, like helmets. In this one, the space apes, like all the apes had these ridiculous, oversized like helmets.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they looked goofy, but it was at least better than just a silver jumpsuit, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, it did. Why was I thinking of giant orange business suits?
You're thinking of one of the other films we watched.
Okay.
In which you're thinking of Godzilla vs. Gigan, in which the cockroaches were all dressed in orange
that's
jumpsuits.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's another reason why I feel like at least giving them goofy, oversized helmets is better than just a one-color jumpsuit.
Yeah.
Because after a while, it just kind of gets visually boring. At least seeing a bunch of dudes in giant, goofy helmets is at least visually interesting, if anything.
Yeah.
they also make the smart decision of changing or retconning the motives of the space apes in this one. And I say that very loosely because they really didn't have any motives in the last film. They were just on Earth and wanted the statue for some reason. This film, they get so in the last film, Godzilla vs. Mecahgodzilla, they mentioned that the space apes are from like, what was it, the third planet of the second black hole.
Something like that.
So
Yeah.
it was something like that.
I remember black hole.
Yeah, but that was really all they gave you in terms of the backstory of this species. There was no like, yeah, our planet was destroyed, or we came here to conquer the planet. It was just we're from the third planet of the black hole, and we're here now. This film at least gives them better like, and that like, so what I'm saying is that wasn't really good reasoning for anything. They were just there. This film at least tries to give them something. It's like a one-off sentence, but it's better than nothing, which was something along the lines of the black hole is slowly consuming our planet, thus we need to take over this one. It was something.
Okay.
It was something to that extent. I could be misremembering details, but they did have a one-off line where the aliens are talking to each other and they're like, "Yeah, this is why we gotta conquer this planet," or something like that. Still not the best. But again, better than nothing. That's basically what I'm getting at with this one over the past film, is where the past film didn't attempt to do anything. This one does, which is why I say it's an improvement over the last one. Last one didn't even attempt to have interesting characters. This one does.
Yep.
Last one didn't attempt to have good pacing. This one does. Well, up until a certain point. Like again, like let me rephrase that. Doesn't have good flow.
Yeah.
Again, the last film just. People are just teleporting place to place and like hard cutting. One moment they're on the space base, the next moment they're on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that yeah.
Yeah, it's like that for the whole film. So while it does help with the pacing in the sense that you're always like moving, it makes no sense because it's so jarring. At least this one attempts to have a more natural flow from scene to scene. This one also attempts to have better setup. Because while this is a direct sequel, it treats it as if you haven't seen the last one, in the sense that, it introduces first the evil scientist, then it introduces the aliens who come to visit the evil scientist and explain, "Hey, we're evil aliens. We know you're an evil scientist. Let's team up." Where in the last film, it would just be the scientist is with the aliens, right?
Yeah.
But then this film goes through the motions of. Again, the aliens show up, they extend their invitation, they bring the human scientist, who's basically a vehicle for the audience, to their base, and they explain, okay, here's our base, this is our Mecahgodzilla, we're rebuilding it, we would like you to help us. The last film wouldn't have that. The last film just has Mecahgodzilla show up, a giant statue just magically appears into the plot, and then they just got to do a bunch of stuff. They don't really slow down to explain a lot.
Yeah.
This film at least does that.
Yeah.
Which helps. It just overstays its welcome again towards the end, where things just kind of drag on. Again, chop off like 20 minutes off this film. I think this would be probably the best of the Showa era, but it just kind of keeps going and going and going, which is where it starts to hurt itself.
Yeah. I will say that there are recurring characters from the last film, specifically the Men in Black. It's Interpol.
Yeah.
Two of the scientists join Interpol, and then
See, the problem with that is that I don't know if they're returning characters or returning actors. They're definitely returning actors, but I don't know if they're playing the same characters because they never reference anything from the last film. They're just there.
I could have sworn they were. I mean, that's fair because I remember them getting the assignment of like checking on the doctor or something at Interpol, which is basically the Men in Black.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember anything about the characters or what they did. The only character that really stuck in my mind is Mafia and Mafia's daughter.
Yeah. And again, that's because they were the central focus. And I do think that's part of the reason why the film drags on a bit is because on top of the evil scientist, who is arguably the strongest character in the film, you also have Men in Black. Because the evil scientist isn't the main character. He's just the main villain. The main characters are the Interpol, the two dudes from the Men in Black.
Yeah.
And they just kind of dick around the whole movie. They're doing an investigation, but all they really end up doing is just chasing after the evil scientist as he does his stuff.
Yeah.
And they never really get to him on time. So they're always just left in the dust, which is why the film kind of drags on a bit, especially in the final act when it's just Interpol just trying to figure out how to stop all this. Because the climax of the film is Godzilla versus Mecahgodzilla and Titanosaurus, the giant fish monster. So it's a 2v1, only now it's now Godzilla's really getting destroyed. So the humans have to kind of step up and also align like help out Godzilla, take out one of the monsters. Unfortunately, that's why I feel like the film drags on a bit, is because you have to have these human characters, or the main characters be there so that they can help out Godzilla in the end. If they had figured out a way to make the fight a bit more evenly matched just between Godzilla and these two monsters, maybe have, I don't know. I don't know how they could make it. They kind of wrote themselves into a corner on that one when they had Mecahgodzilla, like just destroying two monsters on its own.
Yeah.
Even if you threw two more monsters at Mecahgodzilla, it could still hold its own. So they kind of wrote themselves in the corner on that one. But what I was getting at is that if you just took out the entire Interpol plot thread out of the movie, I do think that you could chop out those 20 minutes I was talking about, and it'd be so much better. Just have it where you just have the evil scientist be the main character, and you just take it through his eyes. Maybe towards the end he has another change of heart. Maybe when he realizes that the aliens are like tinkering with his daughter, because they do kind of brainwash her, the aliens. Oh no, not kind of. They straight up brainwash her.
They do brainwash her, and they like devoid her of emotions or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is why it's weird when she starts falling in love with
one of the Interpol guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Just take out the Interpol guys and just make it so that the daughter is the turning point for the evil scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Only he doesn't really turn good. He basically just says, "All right, fuck you guys too," and just sicks his monster against both Mecahgodzilla and Godzilla.
Is that it? I could have sworn his daughter sabotaged.
So what?
She either sabotaged the controls for Titan, or she sabotaged the controls for Mecahgodzilla. Because I remember
it was both.
The aliens being like, "Yeah, the controls for Mecahgodzilla are now in your cyborg daughter."
It was both. So what they did with the daughter in this film, which I also thought was pretty interesting, is that so they established, again, since the scientist to spend his life research on how to control marine life. By that logic, they basically say, okay, at this point they do kind of like a flash forward kind of. They basically say, okay, now he can control Titanosaurus, the giant fish monster, because his research has been accelerated to that point by today.
Right.
So he puts all that research, and he basically has his daughter control Titanosaurus. Literally controlling it with a little RC controller, basically.
Yeah, I remember that.
But his daughter is the one specifically who controls it. I don't remember why exactly, but no one else can control it but her.
Okay.
At the same time, when the aliens show up and they're like, "Hey, help us out," at the same time, they also, when they're tinkering with his daughter because she's a cyborg, they also say, "We've also given your daughter full control over Mecahgodzilla." Because they realized that their flaw in the last film was that Mecahgodzilla was basically self-operating, and so when Godzilla decapitated it, they were shit out of luck.
Yeah.
And so they realized, okay, we need something else to also power Mecahgodzilla. So they gave his daughter full control, which is also part of the reason why they brainwashed her.
Right.
So yeah, she was controlling both monsters, which is why at the end there, when she basically sabotages both, nothing really changes. But yeah, I do think that if they just changed that a little bit, it could have made everything a bit nicer.
Okay.
Maybe not giving her full control over both for starters. Or maybe make it so that when she, I don't know, if she died, it's just everyone's shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Both monsters just go absolute haywire, and you just have a massive 3-monster brawl instead of a 2v1.
Yeah.
In which Godzilla just gets his ass kicked just over and over again. Because he does get his ass kicked. He gets his ass handed to him at the end. But before we get on to the monster part on this one, there's one last thing I want to make note of on the human aspect, which is that this is a huge oversight. Again, you guys probably didn't notice this.
Probably not, considering I don't remember half the fucking characters.
No, this didn't have anything to do with the characters. It has to do with the continuity. And you didn't see Destroy All Monsters, and I don't think you noticed this.
No, I probably didn't pick
This is supposedly in continuity with Destroy All Monsters, set after the movie, despite Destroy All Monsters taking place 20 years in the future, 24 years in the future. Destroy All Monsters took place in 1999, and this one is 1975. And I know this one is set after Destroy All Monsters because there's a scene in the movie. I don't remember from whose perspective, whether it was the aliens or the humans. It was probably Interpol, and I think it was early on in the film, where they have a whole bunch of monitors, and they go, yeah, these are all the monsters on Monster Island, and it shows a whole bunch of monsters from Destroy All Monsters. Or it was something like that. I know they show Godzilla, they show Anguirus, they show King Ghidorah, and they show Manda. And so it's in continuity with Destroy All Monsters, and yet that doesn't really add up in the timeline. But I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like it destroys the whole movie. It was just a massive oversight that I noticed. But yeah, that's all I got on the human aspect. Again, much stronger than the previous film for sure, but it overstates its welcome come like the end of the second act. And the Interpol really don't have a whole lot to do until the final act of the film. And all they do is, by the way, is they just design a supersonic ray gun, which like disrupts disrupts telepathically the brain control over Titanosaurus, the giant fish monster. That's really all they ended up doing.
Oh yeah.
Which is again why I felt like it overstayed its welcome, because that was so insignificant. You could have thought of 10 other ways to do that without having a whole like 20-minute plot thread with Interpol.
Yeah.
AKA the Men in Black.
Yeah. It's also why it ended up being forgettable for me, because it's like, didn't we just watch another movie like 2 podcasts ago where the final weapon was a supersonic gun?
Did we?
I could have sworn we did.
You have to be a little more specific than that. Remember what the monster was?
No, my brain's mush right now.
All right. Well, anyway, so that's all I got on the human stuff for this film. So let's get into the monster action, shall we? Again, unfortunately, there is almost none in this film, which is a bit unfortunate. What is there is pretty epic, but there isn't a whole lot. Godzilla shows up again halfway through the film to fight Mecahgodzilla, and I will say that him showing up, like, if there's any good that comes from him being absent from the first half of the film, it's that when he shows up, it is pretty awesome, because he Mecahgodzilla is destroying the city, and then like it just like pans over to like this like darkened building with a whole bunch of black smoke, and you just see like in the smoke Godzilla's eyes as he roars. Like it's a pretty awesome reintroduction. It just takes a very long time for him to show up, and then he just kind of disappears out of the movie again until the very end, which is a bit unfortunate. And then yeah, when he does show up again at the very end, he just gets his ass handed to him. He shows up abruptly in the final act too. It's when Mecahgodzilla and Titanosaurus are destroying the city, and Titanosaurus is destroying some buildings, and he's about to step on some children. Specifically children. I don't know if you guys remember this.
I do.
And the kids look up and they're like, save us, Godzilla. And then Godzilla just materializes out of thin air again. And he's just now in the city. I wrote down that was funny though, because the kids definitely still got killed. Because Godzilla didn't save them. Like again, they were calling for help, like as Titanosaurus' foot was coming down, and Godzilla didn't like attack him. Godzilla just shows up and roars. And then so Titanosaurus, he definitely squished those kids. They totally died.
That's right. I remember you saying that during the movie.
Yeah. So he just kind of shows up abruptly again, like out of nowhere at the end of the film, and then he just gets his ass handed to him. Just absolutely. I mean, you still got Mecahgodzilla with his full arsenal, no holds back. The only thing that they nerfed was Mecahgodzilla doesn't have his 360-degree shield anymore. Not that he needs it though, because Godzilla doesn't get a single hit in, basically. Mecahgodzilla just unloads on him. Titanosaurus is over here whipping his tail back and forth like a little dog, like just blowing Godzilla away. At one point, Titanosaurus like gives Godzilla a big old smooch on the lips and just like throws him across the field. Godzilla just gets destroyed. I don't particularly remember any like massive gore scenes in this one, but Godzilla gets annihilated.
Yeah.
He only survives because the humans show up at the last second and like disrupt Titanosaurus's mind control, which gives Godzilla like a split second to get in some ass kicking of his own. But yeah, so that was that, and then he decapitates Mecahgodzilla again, and then surprise, there's like a second head underneath. It's a little pencil eraser head.
Oh yeah.
Which is again brain controlled from the Robo chick, who shortly dies, which then just kills Mecahgodzilla. So that was that. Yeah, I wrote down the climax fight. It was extremely underwhelming, just because again they stacked the cards so heavily against Godzilla that it wasn't really a fight.
Yeah.
He just got thrown around a whole bunch until basically the humans fixed the fight for him. Where they come in and they disrupt Titanosaurus. They kill the robot girl, who then self-destructs Mecahgodzilla. Like, he doesn't really win anything, Godzilla, in this one. He just kind of shows up just to get his ass thrown around.
Yeah.
And to watch a couple kids get squished.
Joel.
Yeah,
I mean, at least they didn't go the route of giving Godzilla
Super Saiyan
anime power bullshit.
Look, man, that would have been more entertaining at the very least. Yeah, this film it's stronger than previous entries by far for certain aspects, but the aspects that it isn't really shows. Specifically, again, the writing and the character development is much stronger. Probably the strongest we've seen since like some of the earliest films in this era. But on the flip side, it has probably some of the most underwhelming monster action in the entire era, just because there's so little of it. The special effects are top notch once again.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Nothing looks bad. There just isn't a whole lot to look at.
Yeah.
And again, it drags on a bit. I probably wouldn't mind the lack of monster action if they just tightened it up a bit. If they cut out like 20 minutes, cut out the Interpol thing, just kept it interesting start to finish, I probably wouldn't mind the lack of monster action. But it is what it is. Not the best, but certainly not the worst. This ain't no Son of Godzilla. This ain't no All Monsters Attack. You guys got any final words on Terror of Mechagodzilla?
No, not really. The characters were more interesting, and I understand why they didn't necessarily give. I can see why Godzilla didn't get this time in the limelight. I could say, where the character or the movie was so character focused that they kind of ended up having to tie the climax of the battles with
to the human drama.
Which unfortunately means that Godzilla ended up just being a punching bag for Titan and Mecahgodzilla.
Yeah.
So while I don't hate this movie, I also wasn't extremely happy.
Yeah.
It was decent. It was just also
it's a decent send off for the era. I mean, as opposed to like if the final film was like an All Monsters Attack.
Oh, then that would have.
It definitely ended stronger than previous entries, the era at least.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't the best.
Yeah.
Not by a long shot.
Yeah.
Any final words?
No, for me, I think I lost interest in the movie, because it dragged on.
Yeah.
I mean, I picked up certain scenes just maybe because they were interesting, but overall, I just kind of lost interest.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it does overstay its welcome. Has a strong start, and has
it did. With the scientists and the girl being, cyborg.
Yeah.
In the fight scenes, but I didn't really catch too much of like anything else.
Yeah.
Other than that.
I remember the romance boring me. It was like,
well, again, that's because it was tied to the Interpol thing.
It was like the only purpose it served was to give
RoboChip.
Cyborg Girl a conscience so she could make her own decision. But that's like, it didn't feel natural to me. It wasn't like a natural building romance. It was just forced. It was like oh, hey, look, She's learning how to feel again.
Yeah. Again, there was like plenty of ways they could have gone about it differently. It definitely felt forced, but yeah. So that was Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
I got a couple notes on this one, as well as a couple alternate titles on this one.
I give it one lizard emoji and one heart emoji.
I give it a Terror of Mechagodzilla 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo.
I give this one I give it what is this, the 29th film? I give this a 29 out of 30.
Cool.
29 out of 30. There you go. Give this a strong 5 out of 7. How about that?
I guess.
So, Terror of Mechagodzilla. Let's see what went wrong, or good, or well, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, this final film by Ishiro Honda, final kaiju film by Ishiro Honda, final film of the Showa era. Interestingly enough, Toho once again held another contest for this one. Not in the way you might be thinking, though. Unlike something like Megalon, where they held a children's contest for a design for a robot, this one they held a writing contest to task participants to write a concept for a direct sequel to Godzilla vs. Mecahgodzilla. And the winner was a female student of a screenwriting school in Japan, making this I'm jumping a little bit ahead. The producer was so impressed by the entry, the concept for the film, that he didn't just accept it, but he also hired the student to write the entire script.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which does make it the second film in the entire franchise to be written by a woman. The first one was Son of Godzilla. Original script was a bit interesting, or at least like concepts from the original script was a bit interesting, in the sense that originally there wasn't Titanosaurus. It was instead 2 dinosaurs. So originally there were 2 dinosaurs that would then merge into Titanosaurus, like fuse at a molecular level at some point in the film. It also the original script also, by the end of the film, had Tokyo completely annihilated, like reduced to ash annihilation by the end of the film, by both Titanosaurus and Mecahgodzilla. This did not happen due to the budget alone. Like, Toho was completely okay with that, but just due to the budget, they couldn't do that. That would have been pretty sweet, though.
So, like, even more thoroughly than original Godzilla, utter annihilation?
Yes. Like, completely annihilated. Well, I mean, it makes sense considering, again, you have Mecahgodzilla, who's a one-man army, and Titanosaurus, who in the film, like, his only superpower basically is he has the tail, which can just, like, just blow away an entire city off the map with one gust, basically.
Yeah.
Like, it's Rodan's, like, supersonic ability condensed down into a single fin.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would have been cool to see. Unfortunately, it did not happen. This is one of the only Godzilla films with nudity. You do see Robo-Chick's boobs.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know why it says one of the only Godzilla movies. I don't remember any nudity in the other films going forward, so I'm very excited to see that. This film does make a thematic return to the franchise's origins, making it featuring a darker and a more serious tone. Again, which is what I was saying, like, there's an immediate difference in tone, like compared to the past few entries, at least. Again, I mean, everything since I don't know, Destroy All Monsters has been a bunch of camp and children films, really lighthearted films, basically.
Right.
So that this one tried to, still keeping in continuity with the last film, which is also very, very upbeat in tone, did try and make a slight return to the franchise's origins without just outright just disrespecting the previous films. This one has extremely strong critical reception. A lot of people, a lot of critics, everyone loves this film. Critics raved over this film. Fans consider this one of the best Godzilla films out of the Showa era. Unfortunately, this was a huge financial failure. This was a massive flop. This film remains the lowest grossing Godzilla film of all time, at least in Japan. And so because of that box office performance, no other reason, they decided to put the franchise on ice and would let it slumber for about a decade, almost a decade, unfortunately. Which was interesting. I mean, they had plans to keep making them, but it was just because of just how much of a massive failure financially it was. That was their only reasoning for putting the franchise on ice for almost a decade. A bit sad.
Yep.
A fitting conclusion, especially since the ending of this one has Godzilla just walk out into the sea.
Trollable.
A fitting conclusion to the first era, but not as fitting as some of these alternate titles.
Oh God. Curiosity's sake, was it after this era that they built the Godzilla statue in Japan, or is it after the next era that they built this?
I'm not 100% certain. I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
I don't think it was after this era, but I'd have to double check.
Okay.
To be honest, they probably didn't build it until after the third era.
Okay.
The third era concluded in 2004, and that's when they planned on never returning the franchise again.
Okay, it's probably then, because it was. I remember seeing like clips of news broadcasts where it's like the death of Godzilla, and they like built a statue of Godzilla, like tribute him.
Way to go!
What?
Anyway, so
the death of Godzilla is a franchise. Jesus.
Anyway, so alternate titles. I don't even know where to begin on this one.
Do you have Poland's? I really want to see how Poland fixed this.
I don't have Poland's, unfortunately. I don't know. I don't know how they fixed it. They might have just called them both Terror of Mechagodzilla and just the Terror of Mechagodzilla 1974, Terror of Mechagodzilla 1975. Maybe they were just maybe they just they knew they messed up so badly, just never even released this one. They're just like, yeah, here's Terror of Mechagodzilla. What's that? Oh yeah, released again in Japan. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So here's England's title.
Oh God.
Monsters from an Unknown Planet.
But
none of those apply. Maybe Mecahgodzilla, but
we know exactly what planets they come from.
Yeah.
They come from the planet that's getting
they
eaten
come
by
from
the
Earth, and they come from the third planet in the second black hole.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here's that one's a head scratcher, but even more so is France's, which is Monsters of the Lost Continent.
Nanny?
Okay.
I don't think they lost Monster Island.
Okay, I'm going to give you a choice on these. There's only 3 more. I got Germany, I got Italy, and I got Turkey. All of them are equally as stupid and wacky.
Turkey, Italy, Germany.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, Turkey. This one is of any of these, this one makes the least amount of sense.
Okay.
The title in Turkey. That's what you said first, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Title in Turkey. Fighting in Starfield.
Nani?
You said you wanted Italy next, right?
Yeah.
Would you believe me if I said that Germany's makes more sense than Italy for once?
Really?
No, I would not believe you.
Cool. So here's Italy's. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Destroy Kong. The Earth is in danger. That's destroy Kong, exclamation point. The Earth is in danger, exclamation point.
Kong.
Yes.
Like
Destroy King
Kong.
Destroy King Kong. The Earth is in danger.
Wait, but
Would you like to
didn't fuck that up last
would you like
time.
to take a guess at what Germany's title is?
Does it go back to Frankenstein?
No.
Then
You
I have
said
no
it makes
idea.
more sense, right?
It makes more sense than destroy King Kong, the Earth is in danger. That doesn't mean it makes sense. It just makes more sense than destroy King Kong, the Earth is in danger.
Destroy Robo-Kong. The Earth is in danger.
Not even close.
Okay.
I'm guessing it must have Mecahgodzilla in the title somewhere. Like,
Nope.
No.
Does not have Mecahgodzilla. Does not even have a Godzilla in the title.
Oh
Doesn't have
my
any
gosh.
monsters in the title.
Space Invaders.
Ooh. Not
I
even
know.
close. Germany's title is, are you ready? I would ask for a drum roll, but I don't do it because we're There we go. Do a drum roll on the. Thank you. Drum roll, please. Germany's title is The Devil's Spawn.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we didn't even get biopic about me before I was born.
Germany's title is The Devil's Spawn.
Okay.
Oh boy.
And France's title was 666.
France's title was Monsters of the Lost Continent. Yeah. Oh boy. So this is normally when we would wrap up, but I do want to take a little bit more time on this episode because this was the conclusion of the first era, and a ghosty, you can actually join in on this if you'd like. If you want, you can just go ahead and.
Well, Sean, if you want to
perform a seance. Perform a
Come on,
seance.
Sean, come slide in over on this mic with
slide
me.
into our DMs. We're gonna take a moment now to just kind of look back at the Showa era films.
We're going
and
down memory lane.
Going down memory lane. We're just gonna do a nice little reflection. Not too long. We're an hour and a half into this, so let's keep it under like 20-30 minutes tops.
Oh,
Yeah.
a whole overview of the entire Showa era?
Yeah, just a little, just a quick.
Fuck you. You know I can tell you maybe one movie of the starting with Gojira and ending with Gojira.
Hey, that was a good movie though.
Yes, it was.
So yeah, just a little refresher. I'm just gonna list all the films we have now watched. It has now been a month. We are now a month into this. 29
I
movies.
actually wonder how this is going to sound.
All right,
Won't you like move closer?
Yeah, that's why I was trying to scoot over so you and I can just share this
scoot it a
mic.
bit.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
New Sean.
all right.
course,
So
Sean.
just a
We're both wearing
refresher.
the same color.
Wow, you guys really are the same.
Jesus.
All right, so here's a refresher, just to refresh your minds. Here's everything we've watched in the past month. It's a lot. We watched Gojira. Watched Godzilla King of the Monsters, the Americanized recut of Gojira.
The bastard child.
We watched Godzilla Raids Again.
Mhm.
Then Gigantus the Fire Monster,
Even more of a bastard.
the bastard child of Godzilla Raids Again.
But this one had red hair.
We watched Rodan, the
Ugh.
Mysterians, Varain the Unbelievably Boring, Gorath, Atragon, King Kong vs. Godzilla, as well as King Kong vs. Godzilla,
That was the best one.
the Americanized
out of all.
recut.
Mhm.
We watched Mothra vs. Godzilla, Dogora, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, Frankenstein Conquers the World, also known as Frankenstein vs. Baragon,
Mhm.
as well as the War of the Gargantuas, Invasion of the Astro Monster, Ebera, Horror of the Deep,
Ebony Horror of the Deep.
King Kong Escapes, Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters Attack, Space Amoeba, Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Godzilla vs. Gigan, Godzilla vs. Megalon, Godzilla vs. Mecahgodzilla, and Terror of Mechagodzilla!
Jesus Christ.
So their speakers are blown out now.
I'm sure they could hear us like across the hall.
Our bosses come in
Yeah,
like,
your
is
bosses-
somebody Joel?
Kenny,
What happens?
Kenny probably heard me.
Also,
Greg walks in like, oh, fuck a guy up.
who the fuck is this new Sean?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Those are the.
Is he on payroll?
So those. That was everything we watched over the last month.
Yeah. Wow.
What a ride it was! It
Oh.
was.
Yeah. It was a ride that made me black out quite
No.
a few times.
Now, because I'm sure there's quite a lot of negative things to say, but I do want to stress one thing. Keep in mind, we watched 2 every day,
With the exception of a trilogy one time.
we watched 3 in one day. Early on. But what I'm getting at is there's a lot of films, but we watched a lot of these. We watched all of these in a very, very short amount of time. So just keep that in mind.
Mhm.
A lot of
They were all made in a very, very short amount of time, like 20 years max. For like how many movies?
well, they released once a year. But I'm saying
Yeah, but we watched like well over 20.
I'm saying if we had watched these once a year, just keep that in mind. Like,
yeah, then that would have been cool.
your
That would've been
experience
almost
probably would have been a
30
little
minutes.
different than watching 2 every day for 30 days.
Yeah,
That's all I mean. Wow, I just saw my audio spike from when I shouted. Anyway,
Yep.
oh, you
wow.
can't see it. It already passed.
Oh, I thought the red was part of it. Oh, well.
Oh no, you'll see it when we stop this recording and
Oh, I
take
see.
it.
Okay.
Anyway, so what do you guys think of the Showa Era? Because again, unlike me, I've seen almost all of these. I've seen all the ones going forward from here now. But you three haven't seen any of these, or at least you watched these for the first time. What were your general impressions of the Showa Era?
I mean, I was going strong, and then pretty much flatline.
Yeah, I know. I know it
it
hit you like a couple movies ago,
Yeah.
something like that.
I mean, after the only one that I really hated was Baron.
Yeah,
The boring one. Yeah.
that's the only one. I mean, again, like all these have their fair share of issues, but the only one I genuinely hated was Varen.
Oh, was
That's
it the last black and white one?
That's the swimming simulator one that you told me about, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was the swimming simulator where it spent 45 minutes of Varen just swimming from an island to Tokyo.
So
Supposed to be
painful.
TV movie, and then they were like, "Oh, no, never mind."
Yeah, that was the only one I genuinely hated. There were plenty of duds, but at the same time, looking back at all of them, like
Favorite character, Mark Jackson, the smooth criminal.
my
Oh,
favorite character was
I
the
thought you
anime
meant
villain in King Kong
Kobayashi.
Escapes. Kobayashi, yeah, that was your
Yeah,
that was your
Kobayashi
favorite.
Yeah.
was one of my favorites too. Shit, who else? Steve Martin, the best American reporter ever.
Oh, yes.
Who else? Not the comedian, by the way. I figured out that.
Yeah, not the comedian.
Not
He
the comedian,
he
the,
wasn't he wasn't necessarily a
different
name yet in 1954 or 55
I don't know if he was
in Kingdom
alive.
Hearts. What?
I don't know if he was probably alive.
Probably alive,
But
but
I don't know.
definitely didn't have a name made for himself.
absolutely not. No.
So yeah, what a ride this first era was. Obviously they cranked these out almost as bad as Marvel cranks their movies out.
Except Marvel, most of the time Marvel gives a shit, and they put years into it.
they
These
still
guys were
crank
like,
'em
"Oh,
out."
We've got like a month. Let's make a movie, and then they did.
And with that said though, like the fact that
Oh no, these are impressive, but
the fact that these are all
ugh.
as good as they are, considering most of them only had maybe a month or two start to finish in production.
Uh-huh.
It really is impressive. Again, the only one I genuinely hated was Varen, and that one probably was only as bad as it was because of its production history.
What was that one with the stupid ass kid in the yellow hat who
that was
went-
Destroy All Monsters Attack. I believe
Yeah,
you're thinking of
Fuck that one.
the one
I
with
will take Attack of the Clones over All Monsters Attack any day.
yeah. This era is it's fascinating. Really, this is
That's a word.
it's a word, but I mean, it really is. It's fascinating. It starts off strong in the sense that all of the early films, with the exception of maybe Godzilla Raids Again, which was an obvious cash grab,
Mhm.
all of the early films up until
Which were all directed by Ishiro Honda, correct?
almost all these were Ishiro Honda.
Yeah. So he had like a long streak of masterpieces, and then it started dwindling, like Adam said.
Yeah, it's actually most of them are pretty strong. Like it shifts gears. So that's something that you'll see in this one that you won't see in the other eras. This is the only era where they didn't really know what to do with Godzilla, like the franchise, not the franchise.
Well, then easy. You just stop. Stop. Like when you don't know what to do with Batman, and suddenly you're like, "All right, we're gonna get the Terminator to make a whole bunch of ice puns." You just stop, and you hand it off to.
What are you
someone
talking
much
about?
better.
What are you talking about? If they stop, we wouldn't have the Ice Age.
I hate you.
No, but so this one it started off strong in the sense that they knew what they were doing, or they knew what they wanted to do. Where you had Gojira, which like even out of the entire franchise, it's still really its own thing.
Oh yeah.
Because that was the only one that was made for a very specific reason with a very specific social context. There's maybe only one other film in the entire franchise that had that same mindset going into it.
The Mysterians.
Yes.
Oh, you?
No.
Yeah, it's like, you're not serious. I
No.
was gonna say no, more likely Space Amoeba, but that's okay.
Oh, it was Varen.
Oh.
No, it wasn't.
God damn.
No,
It was
it's
all Monsters Attack.
no. So after the original Gojira, like all the other ones, or at least the earlier ones, like Rodan, Mysterians, Varen in concept, not execution. They all knew that they just wanted to make like monster movies, right? Which is respectable. And then at a certain point, specifically, probably, I'd say probably Ebera, Horror of the Deep. is when they started gearing him towards like more family friendly, lighthearted children movies, and that's really what.
I said it so much I got you to say Horror of the Deep.
I said Horror of the Deep.
No, I thought you said Horror of the Deep. I was like,
I'm pretty
you
sure
got the name right.
I'm
but-
pretty sure I'm pretty sure I said Horror of the Deep.
Oh well.
Maybe I stumbled over my word, but
You know what? Take it to the polls, Laurel or Yanni, guys.
There
What
we
do you
go.
Say?
Uh,
Horror or horror? Because
Point-
I'm cool with either one. I thought it was funny that like I said it so much he slipped up.
no, it's
I genuinely thought that it was called Horror of the Deep. My bad.
what was I saying? Oh yeah. So it's fascinating that just like as this era went on, they shifted so drastically
Mm.
and so hard in tone and writing.
It was all serious and suspenseful.
It was
then
all
went to,
serious
like,
and suspenseful.
parody and comedic, and then it went to like
Children like
I don't
like
know, what the
slapstick
fuck,
comedies.
educational fucking Barney and Godzilla, like
Barney.
yeah.
with an abusive father-son relationship. I don't know, shit.
And again, it's the kind of thing you're not going to see in future eras,
Thank
which is why this one is so fascinating, at least to me.
Oh, it's intriguing, yeah.
I mean, another reason why I wanted to take a step back and whatnot, is because I mean, so these are split up into eras, not just in the sense that like the Marvel movies are split up into phases.
That's different. That was intentional.
No. That I'm saying they're not categorized in eras because of like that. Like
No,
like
yeah, they
these
didn't
aren't.
just decide we're gonna stop the Showa era and
Yeah,
start a new era.
it's not. Well, I mean, like even like, what I'm saying is that like something with like the Marvel movies, like they artificially categorize these movies into phases.
yeah.
Like there's really like there's no reason, like there's no difference between phase 1, 2, and 3. There's really not. It's just the first
It ends
saga
with- it ends with an Avengers movie with the exception of the first phase, and then
and the
like,
second
they
phase and the
always-
third phase. Actually, none of these end with the Avengers. The first phase ended with Ant-Man.
No,
Sorry, you're right.
first phase was ending with Avengers.
Yeah, second phase ended with Ant-Man.
Yeah, second.
Third phase ends
third
with
is-
Spider-Man,
Yeah, exactly.
which is just irritating.
Which
But
I thought was funny because I'm like, by this point they should have like
should have just
like
ended it.
Endgame. should have been the
Anyway,
last one, but
that's
whatever.
beside the point. So yeah, unlike something like that, these aren't just artificially classified into eras. They're grouped up in this because of the genuine historical eras. Like
No. Of
The-
course.
these are-
It's like when you categorize like generational groups. Like
Yeah.
you don't just start like 1 year and go, okay, now this is Gen Z. Like you look back and go, oh, this is where it started to go downhill. You
yeah,
know?
these films are labeled the Showa era films because they literally came out in the Showa era, which was an actual historical period of time in Japan. However, with that said, it goes a little deeper than that, and that's what I was trying to say when we kind of started this. Is that Japan's film industry, it's not anywhere near the same as like our industry.
Mhm.
And to reflect that, like these eras, not only are they just categorized in historical era, but it really is like a reflection of their industry at the time, which is why this era specifically is so fascinating, that it varied, it fluctuated that much
Over 20 years.
over
yeah.
20 years. The fact that it started off with basically an atomic like flashback. Like, hey, you remember this from 9 years ago? Here you go.
Get a load of Judgment Day.
Yeah, and then within 20 years for it to go, hey, Godzilla's for kids now. It's fascinating that like that's how much their industry shifted just over just a short amount of time. And again, it's not something that you're gonna be seeing going forward. Going forward, for one thing, the eras are gonna be a fraction of the length. I mean, the second era we're going into only has 9 films, as opposed to the 20. This isn't even all of the films in Toho's monster lineup in the Showa era. These are only the films that will be directly relevant in some way, shape, or form to the Godzilla franchise going forward.
Jesus Christ.
They got busy.
Yeah.
and
I don't know if that's a good thing.
well,
I mean,
that's also
I'm
what I
already
was.
giving Disney shit for like how they're handling the Marvel stuff. but, like,
That's
this
also
is
what I
worse.
was. That's also what I was saying, because again, early on in our viewing, kept giving Ishiro Honda a lot of shit, and I kept trying to say it's not Ishiro Honda, it's Toho. All these are Toho's films.
I don't doubt it, but wouldn't Ishiro be able to just like go, hey, I quit?
Well, that's
No, because
That's,
when he started on, he was a contracted worker.
Oh,
So he can't just be like, it's, like I just came out of the Marine Corps. It's not like I'd be like, fuck this shit, I'm out. You
Yeah.
face punishments if you try to break contracts early.
Yeah.
What did he sign, like a 20-year contract, like a
I don't.
50-picture deal with?
I mean,
Toho? Like,
obviously, I don't know the conditions of his contract, but he was under contract at least up until what did I say? Like this. Was
all
it
right.
Strong?
Well,
There was a certain point very like recently, like
Yeah.
in this lineup, where I said Toho, like just to combat labor wages or like labor unions, they dissolved all their contracts.
It was since I popped on. I think you said, I think Gigan was his last one.
No. Ishiro Honda's last film besides Terror of Mechagodzilla was Space Amoeba. That's where you popped on, I think.
Oh, it was all the way back in Space Amoeba?
It was Space Amoeba because you didn't watch All Monsters Attack, but you definitely
No.
were here for Space Amoeba.
Yeah. Space Amoeba was the first movie I watched.
Yeah, so Space Amoeba, 1970, only 5. Like in hindsight of our viewing, that was the beginning of this week or last
Yeah.
Monday.
oh,
Yep.
Tuesday.
That is when Toho officially dissolved all their contracts. They dissolved their studio. They did away with their studio system, which forced all these movies coming out year after year after year after year. Not because they wanted to, just because there were unions being formed
Mhm.
and
were like, well, oops.
they didn't want to pay up,
Yeah, that makes sense.
which is also, I wouldn't say part of the reason why they stopped making movies, or
But
like
it's a big
Godzilla
factor.
movies. It's a big factor, but like even going
Same-
forward into
same
future
reason.
eras,
Same reason Transformers 2 sucked balls
basically.
because of the writers' strike. But
Uh,
also it was Transformers 2, but whatever.
But yeah, so I can't really, like you mentioned the other day how like I keep putting Ishiro Honda up on a pedestal. If anything, Terror of Mechagodzilla proves why I put him up on a pedestal, because if like through all of these films, like every year after year after year after year, like almost 15 or so years, pumping out God knows how many movies, like besides these ones,
Mhm.
God knows how many, he still kept it all consistent. It was all consistent tone. It was with the exception of like All Monsters Attack, which was again that was
probably just like hey, we want you to make a kids movie. And he's
that
like,
well,
all right.
well again, like they gave him like no money, they gave him no crew, they gave him no time.
It's
he-
almost like making Martin Scorsese do Hugo, and then he's like, all right, that was the only PG film I'll ever do.
Basically. I
I mean, like,
mean, look at like
I will give Inoshiro Honda kudos.
well, I don't know if I'd give Inoshiro Honda kudos. He did one movie.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that
which
that
one
was in 55.
Which
No,
one?
no, no. What was that King of the Monsters? Or was that Gigantus?
Shit, I don't remember.
It was one of one
No,
of those
no.
two misspelled his name, and they called him in the credits Inoshiro Honda.
But I think it was just the American version.
No, yeah, it was just the American
Like,
version.
they just fucked up when they translated.
Yeah.
I forget which one it was. Actually,
It was one of those two. It was
Which one?
it was definitely either King of the Monsters or it was Gigantus the Fire Monster. It was one of those two.
Couldn't have been either one of those because he didn't direct. He didn't direct Godzilla Raids Again, so it wasn't that. It wasn't.
No. Well, he didn't direct the Americanized version either. But I'm saying they credited him incorrectly.
I thought it was later. I thought it was in color. Whatever.
Maybe. I mean, I could be
Anyways,
wrong.
yeah, it was
either
early
way.
on. It was like the first
Yeah.
10 movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd say probably if anything, I would bet that like he probably got bored at some point and just started phoning him in a little bit, and then towards the end he was like, okay, I'm gonna do good by these, and because I did see kind of a turnaround, but like for a while there in the middle, it was like, what are you doing? Like, what was the I just said it too. What was the one with Mark Jackson, Smooth Criminal? What was that one?
Dogora.
Yeah, that shit. Whatever that was, I don't even know. But like, I can tell you right now, that was not a masterpiece he was trying to make. That was just I have to make a movie, so he did.
Yeah.
And that's why contracts suck.
But also, like, on that one, it's funny you
Especially on
point.
creative stuff. If it was like
It's-
hey, just be an actor in 10 movies, that's fine. Whatever.
It's
Go
funny
RJ,
you
but,
point out
like,
Dogora specifically because of all of these films, that's one of the only ones that he had to make 2 films in 1 year.
what Dogura and
Dogora and Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, came out within months of each
wasn't
other.
that one shitty as well?
No, Ghidorah was awesome.
Oh, okay.
That's the one you fell asleep through, but like
Yeah.
that's the one
He
where like
put-
Mothra kept like getting flung around.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ghidorah was awesome.
No,
Yeah, that's right.
I mean that's why Ghidorah is cemented as one of the best monsters in the universe.
Because he just fucks up Mothra.
Yeah, that one and let's see, what was
The Frankenstein movie.
Oh no, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
I misspoke. That's one of the only instances where he had to make 3 movies in a year.
What was the third one?
The first one was Mothra versus Godzilla. Mothra versus Godzilla, Dogora, and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster all came out within months of each other.
Wow.
So, again, like,
I feel like
Sure.
the studio fucked him a little.
Definitely.
I'll give him a lot of credit back.
So,
Inoshiro Honda, you go, bro.
you
But,
go-
like-
Fucking movie making machine right there.
so I mean, again,
Yeah,
like,
kudos
sure,
to him, but
you
I
could
mean,
view it as he
goddamn.
burnt out, but at the same time, you can't blame him for burning out on 1 out of like 29 films.
Now, see, here I thought he was like electing to do these, and he was like,
No,
okay, let's
You-
do this. All right, let's do that. And they were just like, money.
He was
Go ahead. But, you
they
know,
were definitely
They were like,
it was
all right, you
definitely
make this movie, and he's like, but I want to make Interstellar, and they're like, no, do Batman first. And he's like, fuck it, fine.
well, I mean, to clarify, we don't know if that, like, he might have genuinely wanted to do all of these, but he was definitely under contract,
So,
and these
yeah,
were
so
definitely all
they
like
were like, make it, this one goes out in February, this one goes out in June, this
Yeah.
one goes out in November.
Basically.
Bruh.
whether or not that he had the option to opt out of any of these, I don't know that. It's safe to assume he probably did, just because, like, I don't believe for a second that a company as big as Toho didn't have anyone else to direct these.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm sure he just wanted to,
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him either.
Oh no, absolutely not. No, I mean, if he's anything like me, like I would have taken the job. It's
Yeah,
just,
but-
at some point, my conscience would have come in and go, maybe I don't want to make Dagora or all monsters attack. Like I'll let somebody else take the fall on that one.
But yeah, so
yeah, I could see that. So Inoshiro Honda, I apologize. You can turn back right side up in your grave. It's good.
but yeah, it was
Rest
an
in peace, bro.
interesting era. Unfortunately, like
Died before I was born.
I can't say. I don't want to say that. The era,
I don't want to say that.
the era isn't bad. It's definitely probably the weakest of the three, like in hindsight.
It's like balls to the wall, my dude.
However, that's not saying a whole lot considering the other two have the advantage of modern technology. I mean, again, the
not like that makes it better though.
well,
I have to admit,
what I mean is that a lot of the films in this first era, they're campy only because of limitations. I mean, sure, the writing isn't strong, obviously.
That we can chalk up to like commissioning a script in like a week.
Basically.
And go, yeah, let's film it.
Yeah,
Well-
but the problem is that a lot of these films, it's like, okay, they're obviously suits, they're obviously puppets. It's obviously sets. Like the compositing isn't always the best. Like these things are obvious,
But
not in a bad way, considering the years they're coming out in. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So my argument with all that is that these movies, other than like the original Godzilla holds up.
Sorry, what?
Godzilla? How do you say it?
Gojira.
Gojira? Whatever. The original Godzilla
Yeah.
holds up to this day
Oh yeah.
as being great.
100%.
Okay.
Other than that, for me personally, the best movies were when they were embracing that campiness. So like Godzilla versus Megalon
Yep. King Kong escapes.
was one of my absolute favorites with the best drop kick known to man. It was fun, goofy, campy fun, and it just embraced that side.
Yep.
Whereas both Godzilla versus Mecahgodzilla and Terror of Mechagodzilla, like, I'm not going to say they're bad movies. They were good, but they were definitely trying to take things a little too seriously,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Serious,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was interesting even in those two. They're serious in different ways. Like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was trying to take its wacky premise seriously, while Terror of Mechagodzilla was trying to turn the wacky premise into something more serious, which is just interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, both of them,
Yeah.
they definitely suffered.
I gotta say, yeah, that's something. Yeah, when they embraced the campiness, they were like, well, we can't do much about it, so I mean, might as well, right? But
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but here's to say, like again, like Nushan was saying, the whole, the ability of Gojira to stand up even today. What are we like? 65 years later, I think.
Oh,
I think
like
we're
actually
65
today?
Yeah, 65 years later,
Yep.
it still holds up pretty damn well.
Yeah, 54 to 2019.
Considering, yeah. So like, like obviously those like that was the earliest, that was the most limited they had.
Yeah.
And they could only get better technologically from there.
Yeah.
But still, they kind of went downhill a little, and I would say that's not
Went downhill
necessarily
a lot.
a limit of technological advancement, but rather time. If the studio was pushing them to make a certain deadline, they didn't have the time to make, to like
Make things.
get all those like great shots of like
Yeah. I mean,
perfect compositing and
Yeah.
like the scope of how big Godzilla was, like
Yeah.
those things that you've mentioned before on the podcast that like make Gojira great,
Yeah.
like how there were never any
Flat angles or anything like that.
overhead or anything, right? They were all like
shot from like
low
low,
or, like,
angles looking up.
just a half of a suit just for the foot shit, like that was great. That was forward thinking. That was a masterpiece. That was fucking Stanley Kubrick coming up with a rotating set for 2001: A Space Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
And then we get to like immediately after Godzilla raids again, and then they were like, well,
Which,
throw all technique out the window. Let's make a damn movie, and then they did.
for what it was,
20 years.
I'm not gonna lie, it definitely like was an instant dip in quality, and yet I'd still take that any day of the week over probably almost anything post Destroy All Monsters.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Almost everything. The one exception being like Megalon.
Yeah. But I mean, just talking about just Godzilla stuff because of like how big they made him seem before, and then like they scale him down to like just a glorified.
It still had a certain charm to it.
A glorified what are those things? Kimono dragons,
Yeah.
Like the scope definitely got thrown back a little bit. Now I was just seeing the dude in a rubber suit, but like before it was kind of menacing, and it was like, all right, cool. If they took the time to make it like that, I feel like they could have made these things like just fantastic, figuring out the right like angles for each creature and making them seem
just dedicating
larger
just
than
the
life.
time and manpower.
Yeah, figuring out the high frame rate and then slowing it down and making it, but like that was science that they didn't have back then, I guess. So whatever.
Which they did do that towards the end of this era. I did forget about that. That is why I was thinking this era, because they do that with the last. I think they started doing that.
I'm just talking majority of them.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean, like the majority of them could have been much greater if they took time like that.
I mean, probably the greatest comparison. I don't know if you guys remember this. I mentioned this during our first episode. The original Gojira, they gave him 75 days for the special effects alone.
Yeah.
Versus not All Monsters Tech. One of these
Sounds
most
like a
recent
day.
ones, they gave the guy 3 months to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which one was that? I think that was Son of Godzilla.
3 months is 90 days.
Yeah, compared to the 75 for just special effects.
Oh, you mean the whole production was 90 days?
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
Whole production, special effects, and human drama. And unlike, because like in Ishiro Honda, what they would do when they were under like a crunch, obviously not with Gojira, they gave him 75 days for just the special effects, not including the human drama. But whenever Ishiro Honda was in a crunch, like if they gave him like 3 months, what they would do is that they had like 3 or 4 production units. They'd say, okay, you two are gonna spend the 90 days or however long we have to do special effects. I'm gonna take you, like this group, I'm gonna take group A and B go do special effects, C and D, we're gonna do the human drama. They'd film it all at the same time. So they effectively did twice the work in half the time.
I mean, kudos.
Versus
that I have to say, that's directing right there.
Yeah.
Like, shit.
Versus like fast forward to when Ishiro Honda wasn't doing these films, when it was Jun Fukuda. Again, I forget which one. It might have been Ebera. It might have been Son of Godzilla. It was one of those two. It was the first one that they let him do. They said, okay, you have 30 days. You get 1 production unit, and you have to do everything in those 30 days.
Come on, the horror of the deep demands more than 1 production unit.
I want to say that was Son of Godzilla because Ebera turned out far too good for something like conditions like that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, Ebony was great.
So let's did you have anything? No? Okay. Let's wrap it up with this one. We're now going a bit over 2 hours.
That's okay. We can Infinity War this. Or
Endgame this one. I do want to end this off by
Plus they can pause this. We couldn't pause it.
I'm curious. This one, your answers are going to fluctuate very heavily because you were asleep for 95%. You jumped in at the very end, and I don't know how much you were actually paying attention.
99%.
I want to hear what your favorite films of this era was. There's a lot to choose from, and as I just mentioned.
Okay, so you know what? I actually do remember a lot of them It's just there's very few that were like a bunch of big monster clashes that like probably were great, but I don't remember them because I was asleep for most of them.
You slept through the best parts of the movies.
What was the one with the robot chick whose tits were out?
That was the one we just watched, Terror of Mechagodzilla.
That's my favorite. Next.
Wow.
Okay.
That's fast.
So the ghost of Sean enjoyed Terror of Mechagodzilla the most. Good to know. New Sean.
So I'm gonna preface sans OG Godzilla.
Okay.
Because that made my jaw drop when you and I watched it outside of the podcast. So.
And that is another case where, to be fair, you only watched from Space Amoeba. You only watched these last 6 and then the original.
Yeah.
But yeah, the original,
So-
that's not a bad choice.
So sansing that just because I don't feel like it's fair to compare the rest of these to that one.
Yeah.
Godzilla versus Megalon. It was the most fun that I had watching any of these movies.
Excellent choice. Okay.
Mine is Ghidorah.
Ghidorah, three-headed monster. Excellent choice. Not gonna lie, mine might be a little surprising. What do you guys think my favorite is?
Baron.
Incredibly boring.
Son of Godzilla.
Okay, that's 2 for Baron and 1 for Son of Godzilla.
He's like, you know what? It was Son of Godzilla. It reminded me of my
You know what?
relationship with my father.
Wow, you guys missed the mark. My favorite was All Monsters at No, I'm kidding.
Jesus.
No, my favorite. This one surprised me because this was one of the films I hadn't seen until this viewing.
Huh.
My favorite of the Showa era is probably Frankenstein versus Baragon. Frankenstein Conquers the World. I really enjoyed that one, start to finish. Like the
actually,
strongest writing.
That was a good one.
The human drama was interesting, start to finish. The special effects were amazing.
The special effects were pretty good. Yeah,
Probably on par with some of these last films in this era, if not better. I mean, the special effects themselves, like the pyrotechnics, weren't as good, but the choices, the cinematography choices they made to compensate for that was like nothing else can compare it except for maybe Gojira.
and that's saying something.
Yeah, that's saying something.
I not to be like a purist or anything, because like
it's not really a purist to say that the original is.
No. I mean, in this case, no. But I mean, there are people who are like, oh, you can't touch the original, and then you're like, well, but, dude, sequels were so much better sometimes. Like
this is a scenario where
Star Wars is a opposite example. Like people are like, don't touch New Hope, and then like George touches it like all the time, and they're like, you're fucking with it. And I'm like, dude, Empire was better anyway, so don't fuck with it. Like
this is genuinely a scenario where it truly is hard to top the original. And that's not just the sequels, that's of the entire franchise.
Oh, no, of course.
Which is why it's a bit unfair to lump it in with all the others, just because, unlike all the others, it wasn't made with a studio mindset. It was the only film.
That was a passion project.
Yeah, well, with some exceptions. Invasion of Astro Monster is also one that's one of my favorites. Because that one, just like Gojira, was also a passion project, just not quite in the same way.
You know what? Actually, that was a good one. I thought was I enjoyed, probably not like my favorite. I'd stick with no, I would not. I take that back. What was mine? Tits out. I don't even remember.
Terror of Mechagodzilla was yours.
I take that back. I wasn't even watching it. No, I would actually probably say my favorite
Baron.
was
Baron.
What? No, Ebony Horror Deep.
Oh yeah.
I'm kidding. No, I didn't see that one either. No, my favorite would actually probably have to be what was the one with it was the doctor from
King Kong Escapes, anime villain.
No, it was the guy who was he did like 3 movies for him or something. It was that tiny little span where they had like a handful of movies that were like co-produced by American company.
Oh,
and where they had like American dudes like, in the main roles, and they'd like speak gibberish, but then like overdub with Japanese.
That was Frankenstein Conquers the World, as well as you're thinking of.
I'm thinking of the same guy from Frankenstein Conquers the World, the main doctor.
Right.
But he was in a different movie where they were in space, and his name was Glenn.
Gorath. Was that it? I'm surprised you didn't say Gorath though. Gorath. You love bringing Gorath up.
Which one was Gorath?
How do you kidding? You reference Gorath all the time. You don't remember Gorath's the one with the meteor that flies by, and they gotta push the Earth. They gotta pull a Patrick Star. And they push the Earth out of the way.
That was great. Yeah. No, I don't know. You know what?
And move it over here.
I actually, you know what? I think it's a tie between those two because I'm a sucker for sci-fi. So like, Gorath, I adore because of like the visuals and the
Just unapologetic sci-fi. Like
yeah,
it is like hardcore, like
exactly
early 60s sci-fi.
But it wasn't. It honestly wasn't too bad.
No, like there wasn't a whole lot of camp. It was
Yeah. I really appreciated it for that. But again, most of the visuals, I
Yeah.
would say, plot wise, probably
it was fun.
probably the one with the Glen. I forget which one that was, but
That might have been Invasion of Astro. I know what you're talking about.
no, it was maybe it was Invasion of Astro Monster. It was the one where like Ghidorah was on like
that was
Planet
Invasion
X.
of Astro
Yeah,
Monster,
okay.
yeah.
God, they're all starting to merge, just like my days. So yeah, like
Yeah, Invasion of Astro Monster is genuinely it's
I like that one.
it's an
I like that one a lot.
underrated Godzilla film, really.
Yeah, no, I like that one a lot. I thought it had like a decent like
Yeah.
kind of subtext to it. Obviously like it was sci-fi and I kind of enjoyed that. Obviously it was fun making fun of it, but like just for the little things like, hey, we got from here to Jupiter in like a day, and I'm like, when's this supposed to be? 1980. GG.
Yeah.
But yeah. It was not a bad movie.
That
and
one,
I enjoyed it. The special effects were pretty good too.
That's what I meant by it was a passion project by them, but for different reasons. Where the original Gojira was a passion project in subject matter, Invasion of Astro Monster was a passion again, you probably don't remember, but I mentioned it when we discussed it. E.G. Tsuburaya like stopped what he was doing, like stopped work on like 3 productions just to do this one because this like doing a hardcore sci-fi film was like their passion project. Like that's what they always wanted to do. So when they got the opportunity, they jumped on and they just went full throttle, which is why it's probably as good as it is, just because they were.
It's kind of like how I was at the tail end of that TV show I was doing. For my school, like out of nowhere, we're like, all right, let's do like a sci-fi 2-parter masterpiece, and I was like, bruh. So we went all out on that bitch.
Does anyone else have any final thoughts on the Showa era films? Again, quite a ride. It definitely. I mean, it hit you obviously a lot like borderline immediately. You tagged in at the very end, so you didn't really feel
it cost me my life.
You became a ghost.
I know.
What
a price to pay.
What do they call it when people get sick of the Marvel movie or superhero movies in general?
Fatigue.
Thank you. Yeah. Ghost Sean got hit by the big G fatigue almost immediately. I don't think you've been hit by it. That's just because you hopped in at the very last second. You and I started feeling it very recently, though.
Yeah, more towards the end.
Very recently.
Like
all monsters attack.
Yeah.
after
the kids stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, like that is when everyone
like
says.
which one's the sludge?
Hedorah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Godzilla vs. Hedorah.
Pollution.
I do enjoy Godzilla vs. Hedorah, but that is the like the turning point for the franchise, at least temporarily. Because after that, Gigan was kind of a bore to sit through. Had some cool monster fights, but yeah, that was kind of a chore to sit through. Megalon was just fun.
Yeah.
But then these last two, yeah. After All Monsters Attack is when it just kind of starts nosediving into oblivion.
What about the iconic Godzilla attacks? I mean, mine is the one where he flies.
Oh yeah. Oh, let's. You know what? That's a good way to send this off. Let's do because we haven't done this in a while. Favorite scene, but from the entire Showa era. Go ahead. Just take a minute to think over it.
Well, now you know mine.
God.
I mean,
I don't need to think about it.
I just said it.
Godzilla flying.
Yeah, because I was like, what?
Okay.
That was very memorable for me.
That was incredible. That was like
I did not
I was
expect
about to
that.
say something bad,
All right.
but I can't say it. We all haven't seen the movie yet.
What?
I was gonna say something from Endgame, but I'm like, no, I can't say it. Never mind.
Wait, I'm catching up, so give me some time.
Of course.
So K's is Godzilla flying, an excellent choice. Nushan.
Actual in movie scene has to be the 3 drop kicks in a row with JJ Jaguar.
Another excellent choice.
However, I love Jet Jaguar's theme song.
Excellent
That was
choice.
great.
Ghost Sean. Force
I didn't
Force
even
Ghost.
think about this. This the scene where
I think I know
forget
what
the
it
name of
is.
the movie, but where they're cutting into this Robo Babe and her tits are out. That's my favorite scene. All right. I gotta go.
Actually,
I
I
gotta go
thought-
possess somebody. So GG TTYL XOXO.
I thought you were gonna say something
His
else.
life force
but-
just evaporated out of nowhere. My
Time's
favorite.
up.
My favorite scene out of the entire show era. This is a toughie. This is a tough one. Oh god. I'm probably gonna have to go classic. I'm gonna have to go with the classic one. My favorite scene is probably Godzilla just stuffing. Oh no, King Kong stuffing a tree down Godzilla's throat. That's probably my favorite scene out of the entire show era.
Jesus. Can't believe I missed that.
Yeah, that was a good one. So that's gonna do it for the Showa era as well as this episode. Thank you for listening. If there is anyone listening, please help.
Please help.
Tune in next time where we finally move on to the Heisei era of Godzilla films. Starting with one film. This is going to be the last instance where we watch the same movie, but both the Japanese and English cut.
Okay, well, I'm pretty interested in the
Yes.
American cut. So
Next episode, tuning in, we will be kicking off the Heisei era with The Return of Godzilla and Godzilla 1985.